I'd like to call the meeting in order and start with a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Whitfield. Counselor Morocco.
Here.
Counselor Petropoulos.
Here.
Counselor Gilat.
Here.
Counselor Grimaldi.
Here.
Counselor Peeler.
Present.
Counselor Lavin.
Here.
Counselor Brennan.
Here.
Mayor Valentino.
Here. Thank you. I'd like to start this off by welcoming everybody to our next budget discussion. Just kind of a frame things. I'd like to thank city manager and staff for all the effort they put into this budget. We started this early in the year to try to provide direction. Good evening, Councilor Whitfield. He is here now. Nice to see you. We provided some level of direction, even though it wasn't crystal clear by any means. Our council has a little bit of division in that. But I think it was clear enough to staff that they would take that information and those directives from council to come back with a budget this year that I will say is fairly conservative. And as the city manager mentioned, at the beginning of the presentation of this budget, it is a bare bones budget in many ways. So starting from that platform, I have referenced the green sheet many days. And I apologize if I haven't formally told everybody and the public what the green sheet is. On one side of the green sheet is the 2025 reductions that this council did not pass or vote for in an attempt to reach a number that would have satisfied this council to move the budget forward. And in that, there was actually two items that we had to fund by need based on some failures that took place in the city that we had to fund. On the other side is the 2026 not funded items. And I want to be clear with that because city manager knew what we wanted as a council, as a majority of the council, and asked staff to do a reduction of 5% across the board. Staff did that, and you've probably seen articles in the paper and all kinds of other information about the impact of that 5% reduction. But I reference this sheet frequently because to me, this isn't the wants. This is the needs of city and staff, and I think that's important for us to kind of focus on. And another thing that I tried to attempt to do was, because I've been doing this for a while and I understand some councilors are new, I tried to put my motions forward early, 2 or 3 weeks ago, to let councils know how I wanted to change the budget. And I think it's important that any councilor or the mayor that would like to impact the budget would identify how they wanted to impact that budget and how they were going to either add or take away funds and where those funds would come from or where those funds would go to, whether it was an increase in tax levy and tax rate, whether it was coming from general fund balance. It was important to kind of get that complete picture on those motions and how they would impact it. So last meeting, we did present, me and Councilor Petropoulos presented some changes to the budget. Tonight, we're going to have further discussion, and I'm not sure if that's going to create any change in the budget or not, but what I would like to ask this council to do is, as we're having this discussion, if you would like to impact the budget in any way, to make a motion, and to be thorough with that motion, and talk about what that motion means to the city and the taxpayers, and where the funds will come from or where the funds will go to. So Councilor Grimaldi has been generous enough to provide us with a document earlier this week on his focus for discussion. So I'm going to pass it to Councilor Grimaldi. And what I would like to do, Councilor Grimaldi, is kind of address your, because the general public hasn't seen this document yet.
No.
So I would like to try to address them one at a time. And I believe the first one was with city information. So I don't want to belabor any of the issues, but I'd like to create a dialogue off of those issues. Yes, please.
Just so council and people that can't see this document are aware, what staff has done within the last really 24 hours is where there was more information or questions that other council members had on these topics, we've included that into Councilmember Grimaldi's topics. It has his comments in green, and then staff feedback or just considerations in black on that. So we can have more discussions on that, but just so that
Thank
you're
you.
aware.
Yeah, I'd almost say I'm colorblind, but I can see the difference in the two, definitely. Yeah, and it does start with the city information, and again, I thank staff and city manager and staff for taking this document and providing information as valuable as council to make decisions from. So let's start with city information is where you were, and I know I had some comments on that originally, and now I'm seeing staff's comments.
I don't know, the city information just was general information, just so everybody knows where the city sits. And that's basically what I put out there, just to start it up.
Yeah, it had to do with residency and the drop in
We've
population.
been losing 200 in population the last couple of years. We are losing them. We've been losing continuously. I mean, lived in the city 23 years. We continually have less and less population every year. So it is a city that's getting smaller. That was what I put out there. A little bit of how much people make in the city, just so you know. I mean, when I wasn't active here, I didn't know. In fact, just the other day, I was corrected on something that I had to put in here. So I didn't realize that the average, I had from the census the median incomes of a family. I didn't have the average income of individuals, and it's considerably lower. So that was important, I thought, anyway.
Okay, so for the public, Council Grimaldi provided information about the drop in population, which is accurate, I believe, in the number of households and some of the average incomes. My comment, and then I'm going to pass it to the city manager because I haven't caught up with all the notes yet. But I asked a question because there is a comment that the city provides water and sewer services to the surrounding towns at a wholesale cost or reduced program cost. And my comment was, is this factual that the surrounding towns do get wholesale or reduced cost? I'm not.
Yeah.
Is that fact based? Because my understanding was when we did this whole town agreement years ago, we had the opportunity to raise rates, and there was a council that was in place that was very aggressive that we wanted to raise them as high as we could legally, and because a lot of things that have been said on this council about our services provided to other municipalities. And I believe, just on a flat line, city residents, as opposed to the rate we're charging the town, the charge to the town is higher. Even though they might subsidize or do whatever they do, the actual rate for water and sewer is higher than the city taxpayers' rate. That was my understanding.
I don't know, it wasn't mine. What is the town paying more per thousand than city residents? Because I thought that when we got done with the lawsuit, it was they paid a wholesale rate.
So the town on the sewer side anyway is based on that litigation. So there's an agreement it's not based off of a per gallon rate. It's based off of the city's budget. And then for water, the outside of the city rate is higher than the inside the city rate.
So does the town pay more?
The town would pay more than a city resident for per gallon. Yes.
It pays more, but not necessarily as much as it could pay under the state's other
I wasn't worried
examples.
about.
Well, that's something we have to
That's the
determine.
study that
Yep,
they're
exactly,
doing the study, and
The jury's out on that one.
yeah.
The other comment I had was many NOS residents use city-provided services and programs, and my question was, what does that mean? Do you have examples of what services or programs non-residents use? It sounds like they're taking advantage of us.
Well, we've always opened it up for the town. The town pays a little bit more, but they do utilize our services. They've always used our rec department. They've always, they come in, they use our parks, they use everything that's more of a just informational thing. I'm not looking to rack up any extra Nowhere in here do I talk about charging outside agencies more money. It's just a fact that they do get services from us.
No, I don't disagree, and I'm just thinking of programs that I know that we have city fees and then we have out-of-city fees. That's
Right.
where my brain was at.
No.
Councilor Peeler?
I had a question back on the water, just for clarity. I thought the town individual residents are not metered, and instead it's passed through the town as a purchase agreement. Like they're actually not charged per gallon because the town is charged a rate, like a flat rate.
As far as sanitary sewer goes,
Mm-hmm.
it is metered. We have 4 locations where we meter the volume, of, the consumption, if you will, of sewerage. And the town agreement has a baseline of a volume of liquid that can pass through. Once they exceed that volume at a set price, then there's steps, incremental, based on overages. And since the last few years that I've been here, it has not exceeded those baseline volumes.
So you can argue that the town is under their baseline for usage.
Under or at it,
Right.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
But the town also, sorry, Your Honor.
You can have it.
Oh, go ahead,
The-
Councilor
the-
Lavandale, please.
The town uses sales tax revenue to reduce their water charges to the residents in the town, giving them lower rates than would be, and in some cases, lower rates than the city person pays in the way we do it. And the sewer charge that they do to the residents is based on assessment, not on the usage of water as it is in the city. So basically, if you believe that the deals made way back with the gross sale to the town is fair and accurate and reflecting on the value of what we're doing, then you're okay with this. But if you don't, and that's why they're doing the study, to at least get some information around it, you could argue that they're using our asset, the city asset, to reduce the cost of owning a home in the town and actually using commercial and high-end properties in the town to make it even more advantageous to own a house in the town compared to the city. So these are all, we're in bed together in a number of past judgments that have been made, and I think they all need to come to the table and could easily, there are places around the state, if you look into it, where the out-of-district charge for water is 100% higher than in the city. And that's where the potential for more income for this great asset we have is.
Yep, I look forward to the study. Anything else on the original information? Because I'll move on to the next one was, oh, I'm sorry, city manager. Did staff had input on that? Because
No, we
Okay.
didn't provide input. The debt is where we started giving you some
okay,
notes.
thank you. So moving on to debt review. Councilor Grimaldi, you want to start there because you talk about 18% of every dollar, and I'll let you go from there.
Okay, are we looking at Adam's numbers that he's given us?
Yep.
We spend out with the 3 budget, the water, the sewer, and the general budget, we spend 18.1% of the money taken in to the city on debt. So this budget looks at spending in capital costs another $16 million, of which most of it is bonded. So what I just did is I sat down and took our budget page and went through and figured out how much, based on what was told to us in other meetings, that general fund is usually 15 years and water and sewer is usually 30 years, and looked at how much it's going to cost the taxpayers of the city every year for the next 15 or 30 years. And that's what I put in here. So each project is broken out for dollars added to the budget. In years probably 27 going forward, because usually that first year you're bonding, you're not putting any money in your budget for it. So when I started looking at it, it became, you know, between the interest we paid and that we paid adds quite a bit into the amount of money the taxpayers are gonna pay over the next 15 to 30 years. And right now, we're putting out close to $5 million a year in principal and interest payments. In my book, I just as soon have that $5 million to spend on projects and that than to have it on future taxpayers paying the bill for what we do today. And that's where these numbers come from. You know, they're straight out of the budget. They're just calculated at the end of the, I didn't put it in the one I sent to you guys email because I figured we'd have to talk about it here. But then you had commented on rates and that. So I put amortization tables for 30 years and 15 years at 3.5%. And that's what we were told was the percentage. And that's only if our rate stays where it is. It could go, if the rate goes up, we save some money. If it goes down, we pay more money. So, you know, when you start looking at taxpayer costs, and I was trying to get how much this is gonna translate to a tax rate in the future. Because basically, that's what we're looking at. We're not looking at for 26 on this. If we sit down and we bond in 26, it really doesn't hit the budget till 27 and goes forward from there, right? I mean, I'm
Yep.
not out of line. So we're looking at future taxpayers are paying what we're doing today.
Yeah, I think that's correct, and I think you're dead on with the 18% based on Adam's information. And we're kind of grouping things together. We're talking about a debt review, and I'm just trying to play catch up with some of the comments from staff. Debt review, and then you're also talking about specific capital improvements, and I believe we're talking Clinton, Cherry, and Elmwood, along with
I went right down the
Yep.
list.
Pulteney, cellular water, fire apparatus, and others. Like you said, you want right down the list. So I want to just, because I have some comments, but I want staff to have an opportunity, because I see a lot of notes here, so if you, please don't crush me with all the information. Can somebody summarize what your notes
Sure.
are here?
Yep. So, first off, the capital plan begins on page 93 of the budget, in case anyone wants to take a look there. The numbers you put together, Councilor Grimaldi, are accurate based on, obviously, I don't know nobody knows what our exact interest rate's gonna be, but 3.5 is safe, to assume. They are variable rates, and it's also accurate that we wouldn't see any savings from the 2026 budget capital plan until 27. The only thing I would also add is that you had mentioned a rough number of $5 million in savings, but that wouldn't be realized until the 15-year.
Until everything's paid off.
Right. So, and cost value, time value of money, all that kind of stuff. We all know that may not be $5 million today is not going to be what it is in 15 years, which you were alluding to. So I think that it's everything you have in there is accurate. Trying to see if there's anything that we missed here, but
I think what might be
are they at
digestible,
the oh,
and
sorry.
I don't want to put the cart
I didn't
before
know
the
they were
horse,
there.
because I know there's a lot of comments on the specific street reconstructions and the other items, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but somewhere in this conversation, it would be nice to be able to say, if we did not do $5 million worth of debt next year, because I think that's where you were headed.
Well,
What-
it comes out to a little over 16 million in
Total,
debt and
yeah.
bonding.
Yeah.
So
Bonding and,
Talking about a
well,
one-year-
bonding and reserve, and I did throw in, I used everything on the page, so it is got the CHIPS money in it, which we would get either way. And there is a little bit of fund reserve coming into that 16 million.
then I'm trying to
about 1
wrap
year.
my hands around.
1 year moratorium is what he's saying, just 1 year.
So, Mayor, if I may,
Yep. Please.
I think what will be helpful is if we were to go through the projects that wouldn't happen if you did a 1-year moratorium.
Okay.
The other piece that I think Councilor Grimaldi pointed out to is you would still be paying down debt in that time. So you would be getting ahead on paying down your debt because your debt doesn't disappear. And those debt payment schedules are on page 105, so you can see what that payment plan would still look like. This would have no impact on your current budget. It would have impact on your future budgets. And that's actually why we use debt, is because it extends that cost over long term versus lumping it all on at one time when something breaks. Usually that's when you don't do debt. When something gets to the point of breaking or you need a large equipment purchase, you take it out of your general fund and potentially increase that year. But I think it'd be easier to go project by project.
And I'm gonna go with you, but I'm a little slow, so I gotta just, I gotta try to digest what we're trying to do here. So I understand on page 105, I'm looking at the debt forecast in 2026, 2027, and through 2030. And I apologize for anybody that doesn't have the budget in front of them, but the impact of what we're talking about, maybe a moratorium for a year or whatever that might be, would be a motion that would hit the floor that would drive the non-investment of capital improvements for the next budget cycle. And that's really where I'm trying to wrap my head around how that really impacts the 2026 budget, 2027 budget, and future budgets in many ways. And I know you've got a lot of notes in here. We're going to hear some of that. But I'm just trying to make sure the council's on the same vein that Councilor Grimaldi is on and I'm on. And we're talking, Councilor Grimaldi, you're talking about pushing out for a year capital improvements. Is that?
Well, basically borrowing no money in '26. We'll talk about '27 and for
Okay,
end of
so
next year.
borrow no money in
Yeah.
26. Okay.
And
Can I ask
if
a
I
question,
may, just on how this works, so the capital improvement plan is created as part of the budget. You vote on that at this point, and you could withhold it, but no bonds are actually realized until you have project costs, and then we come back. So you vote on all of these twice. You vote on them once now, and you vote on them once in the future. If you were to stop in 2026, my assumption would be is you would ask staff to then look at the 5-year forecast and redo the capital improvement plan because you're pausing everything for the coming year.
Listen, you're taking the words out of my mouth because I got something I'm going to talk about later, but I didn't want to go there
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
There's no-
Director
there-
Venuti.
There's no need, there's nothing that stops us from making a decision on some of these projects in February of next year. You can bond and fund a project anytime you want. It's
Well,
just not with
but
a
I don't-
budget that's
Correct.
predictable.
I don't know if that's that simple, though, because you got to have funds to do it.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that,
you
but
just
you're.
Take a
you're-
bond, that's the fund.
Yeah.
So bonding now or not bonding now or bonding in February?
Well,
I'm
if
trying to
you-
get where you're going.
If your goal is to say like 5 years from now, you're gonna not be at 44 million in debt, taking 25% of your money, tax money for debt. You're gonna reduce your indebtedness overall. This is a step toward buying a year of
Okay.
of reduced
But-
debt payments that could be used for the fire trucks and the other things you all passed last meeting, but it wouldn't come out of the increased spending that we're doing now. I mean, it's a
But I al-
longer-term thing.
I almost interpreted your comment as if we say no now, we'll say no, we'll say yes in February?
We could. I'm just saying it's not a, if our goal is to reduce indebtedness and to pull a line on taxes, this is a step that does that, buys us some time. It slows down our projects for a year.
It is a
It-
message to staff, though. Counselor
Mayor,
Peeler.
Can I jump in real quick?
Let me get Counselor Peeler first,
Yep.
because he's been raising his hand.
It's
I've
okay,
been avoiding it.
I remember my question, you, if
Okay.
if you're fired up, hit it.
Not fired up at all, but I just want to, what we would do is if you would be rejecting the capital improvement plan, which would then mean we would need to restructure the capital improvement plan. So we may not suggest that you bring these back in February because an emergency could happen and we need to revise it. They are gone, the capital improvement plan goes in the budget cycle, and we've talked about how we revise and revamp the capital improvement plan. That's one of the reasons that if you were to look at this and go project to project now, it also starts us in the process of taking these projects on, because we're going to need time, and you can see as we get into some of these, they are not immediate projects. and we don't bond for the whole project at once sometimes because we have to do initial engineering, other costs that go into it. Some of the things in the capital improvement plan are grant-based, so we wouldn't bond for them unless we had funding to go with them. But if they're not in the capital improvement plan, I have to signal to those grant funders that we do not have funding dedicated to this.
Council Peeler.
Thank you. So, how much of last year's capital improvement projects, and I think we bonded for 14 million last year for capital improvements, I'm looking at last year's budget. How much of last year's projects have we not broken ground with yet? And I can list a bunch now. We got ice complex refrigeration plant, ice complex bleacher upgrade, street resurfacing on various streets, Pulteney, that's which is chips actually, but Pulteney Street reconstruction, Hamilton to Castle, Pulteney Street sewer, reconstruction, just general reconstruction from Clinton and Cherry, Elmo Street reconstruction. That was $5 million bond. How many of those have we not started yet?
Several of them have started with preliminary engineering reporting, survey data collection and base mapping, and then preliminary design stages. So it's hard to say which ones we haven't. I'm not up to speed on what's happened at the rec.
Okay.
But I can tell you that the delay in this and the moratorium thoughts go back to previous council's decisions in the 2020 to 2022 timeframe, where we did that and didn't fund any projects.
Yeah, we had.
So we are considerably behind on survey, planning, design to get projects out the door. For instance, the Castle Street project, which has officially started, was on the docket for 2019. And we just now are breaking ground. And counselors, the prices in 2019 are far lower than they are today.
Right, but we started spending that money this year. So,
Yeah, like
so it's
contractor money,
So
yes.
right,
but-
so we're paying interest. We're essentially we got the mortgage 3 years before we moved into the house.
All right, Adam can confirm when we did the bonding for that, but
Yep, so,
because the projects were on hold.
I
Yeah.
get it, but we still had to start making payments, right?
no, so what we do is when we start the borrowing, that gives us kind of the go-ahead to start expending funds for that project. What you do is you establish a bond anticipation note, which,
The ban.
yes, exactly.
I remember the ban.
Yep. So you do that. You make interest-only payments for several years, or until you get that project up and running. At which point those bids come back in, and again, if you had originally borrowed, let's say, $5 million for a project, and you get the ban rolling, and it comes in that it's $4.5 million, you only have to make that ban into a bond for $4.5 million, not $5 million.
Right.
So that you're able to kind of get started without doing the whole thing yet, and that's the bond anticipation note versus the bond. Once it's a bond, it's set.
So thank you. So does the ban set your interest rate, or does the bond itself set your interest rate?
The bond has its own interest rate.
Okay, so
So
really,
if
so
you-
you don't really need a ban. That's just more of a procedure, because you could
Well-
actually just get the bond when you need the money, right?
Yes, bans usually are a better tool because they give you the funding to start the project. If you look at page 105, one of the other things that I think is the confusion is we don't borrow on projects until we're ready to go on the project. So you can see in 2018 there's a bond issuance, 2020, 21, and then we paused because there had been that moratorium, but also we couldn't catch up on things that you had authorized as part of the CIP. And so we didn't start borrowing again until 24 and then 25. And so that's the basis of staff looking at it and having discussions. Joe and I will have the discussion of how many roads can we really do at this point and what do we need to borrow. And that's where that comes from. That's why you also get those two votes. So we have the plan document, which gives you a 5-year forecast of what we're thinking of doing, versus just a 1-year snapshot in the dark kind of this is next year.
I appreciate that. What I am noticing, because I remember the difference between ban and bond from other conversations, but I don't see it outlined on the budget. It's just we call it a bond, even though we're looking for a ban,
So
but it's not on the bond page.
It's on page 105. It's the bottom line of each fund. It wouldn't be outlined in the capital plan as a
Right.
ban.
Okay,
just
that's what I'm
as
talking
bond
about.
financing, but
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm just trying to lock in my own understanding, even
Sure.
though it's only got a couple more months left of it. I do want to just say thank you for telling us about, Amy, for how this sets the tone for capital projects. Like, and, you know, if something does come up, like you said, like an emergency that throws a monkey wrench in the capital plan, well, gosh darn it, that might happen regardless of any type of bonding we do. If an emergency is so pertinent that we gotta, like, time out, right, that's gonna happen regardless, right? We only have so many man-hours, we're diverting those man-hours to any emergency anyways, right? Like a massive water main break, or possibly like a small portal to hell opens up, you know, on Grant, you never know. So, I appreciate that, thank you.
Counselor Gilat.
I'm going to come in from the layman
Ghostbusters
point of
level
view
stuff.
here. I think I'm a little confused, maybe not. So if we're not creating more debt, okay, we're going to start paying debt down, whatever the case may be. How long before we have enough money to pay for these projects? Is there a forecast as far as how many years out?
You got a crystal ball? No, I'm being a
There's
little
gotta be- There's
sarcastic.
got to be
I
a
don't know.
plan. I mean, there's got to be a
Yeah.
plan. If we're not doing capital improvements, because we're saving money, because we're reducing debt, and Councilman Grimaldi said numerous times, he'd prefer to pay cash for everything. When does that happen? With this plan, when does that happen?
Depends on what projects you want to do. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to projects. I moved here in 2002. My street was on the redo list for 2006. They haven't quite got to it yet. So, I mean, it changes as it goes. I mean, Joe will tell you, you may have a problem with the street all of a sudden that he didn't realize he was gonna have. That you have to instantly get in there and fix it. I will pick on Bill a little bit with his hole to hell, but you get a sinkhole in a road, or a sewer line collapses on one of the streets. That isn't something you can sit down and say, well, I'm gonna put it on my schedule. He's gonna have to move in and he's gonna have to do it. You're gonna have to bond right now to have that work done. You can't sit down and say, well, we'll put it on the schedule 5 years out. So you're always gonna have to have the option to bond. My problem is that we continue to bond a lot. And I'm on your 5-year debt forecast. Does 27 take into account all the bonds that are gonna come up for 27? I mean, because everything we do here is gonna come up in 27. And right now, we're gonna be paying $600,000 less in general fund bonds.
right, so it only takes into consideration
What's now.
this upcoming year.
So if we
Yeah.
put this off for a year even, that's $600,000 in taxable that we're
Yep.
gonna have extra.
Yep, so just to comment on that, I would say, costs are increasing at a pretty alarming rate right now. We saw that with the marina, with the ATAD project. Several years ago, we thought it was X number of dollars,
Right.
and now we
Prices
found out
go
it's
up,
$7
double.
million more dollars. So the idea of, let's use a project that we're doing this year, or that is in the budget for 26, a street project, and we say we're not gonna borrow for it, we're gonna wait until we have enough to pay cash for it. Getting back to your question, that could be
Who knows?
10, 12 years before we get to it. In the meantime, all of the projects we would be doing would most likely be emergency projects, because we wouldn't be able to schedule out a capital plan where we were able to complete any of them. So we wouldn't have the cash to do it.
Right. I agree. I mean, I'm not saying never
Yeah.
bond. I'm just saying right now, we have an awful lot of debt. And we need to take a look at it. In this particular case, if we're looking at 105, we're gonna have $600,000 extra, would be really nice in an equipment fund. So when the chief wants his fire truck, it's only a couple years out. You know, if we save 600,000 a year, 2 years, we got $1.2 million. We're pretty close to the fire truck. With no bonding, we're not borrowing $1 million up front. That's gonna cost us more money and spread it over somebody who lives here in 15 years. That truck is going to secondary already.
So
And
with
that
that,
that example would say no 2026 or 27 bonding, right?
No. 26, between 26 and 27, it's $600,000. 27, for some reason, for 27
And you're
and
saying no
28, we're
bonding in
going up.
27 though.
What?
You're saying no bonding in 27?
No,
No,
I'm
it's
saying
just
no bonding in
reducing.
26. It tells me right here that if we bond nothing this year, we're gonna be paying 1.767. Right now, we're paying 2.379, that's $600,000 difference.
right, I think what you do have to realize if you do that is you do have to set up a fund where you're gonna put that 600,000. So you're
Right.
still taking that money from the taxpayers of six
Right,
hundred
we're not
thousand and
cutting-
putting in a
we're not
fund
saying cut
for
taxes.
future.
We're just saying that when we go to do budget 27,
Right,
that 600,000, without changing taxes, is sitting there.
correct.
Yep.
And
savings
that's what the
account.
motion would need to be is how that
Where
you
you
wanna
put
set
it.
a fund for 600,000. If you put it in equipment reserve, that obviously then wouldn't do street surfacing or those other things. But
Right.
just so everyone's aware, you would be taking that money now, kind of putting it in a savings account.
Right. So when we go to do more trucks like we were doing this year, we don't have to take them out of our normal reserve.
What, I don't want to
We have the right
expand
to do
upon
that
the
anytime.
600,000. Joe, you wanted to say something?
Well, I just wanted to kind of make sure that I understand as well as the other department heads. If we are going to build a savings account, if you will, that money needs to be put in, to reiterate what the city manager just said,
Right.
continually, this year, next year, whatever, to build up. I don't know how quickly we can save $14 million, but that's one project.
Yeah.
But you're still
Maybe
gonna-
we need to look at something different and some other way to do it.
You're gonna bond, but Adam, what, if your overall indebtedness was 30 million instead of 44 million, how much of that 25% that's now going to, I know that's a hard thing to do in your head probably, but you'd be reducing by a third, how much your debt payments comes out of the levy every year. And that money is still available for use for fire trucks or other projects that come up, or a
Yeah.
piggy bank or anything you want.
I
You'd be
would have
reducing
to
your,
run that. It would be reduced, yeah.
Yeah,
With-
1/3 of 5 million. It's pretty easy, but.
But it's
I think-
not all levy dollars. Remember,
No,
because
I-
you're talking water and sewer, so it would be a third of a third,
well,
and it gets
Well,
very complex.
This is just general fund dollars.
yeah,
Well, some of
the-
these
No,
projects
it's general
listed,
fund, water
Right,
and
but
sewer.
I
the-
understand.
The 600,000 is just general fund.
right?
but
The water
water,
and sewer-
water and sewer payments are still taxes. They're
Yes.
for services, but they're out of the taxpayer's pocket.
Yep.
You don't need to
Or
separate
non-taxpayers.
those.
Or non-taxpayers. They're rates for everyone that uses the service.
Water and sewer.
Right.
That's why they're
Right,
different.
users.
Users.
Yep.
Well, I think what's important is when we talk about your street, Councilor Grimaldi,
Yeah.
which hasn't been done since whenever,
I don't know. It was
Um,
bad when I moved in.
and
2006.
I don't know if there's spitefulness on why your
No,
street
I don't
hasn't been
care.
done or not.
I didn't
Good
care when I
example.
worked here,
I'm not
so I
sure,
didn't care now.
but
I'm just using
There-
it as
but-
an
but wait,
example.
but there's no reconstruction.
Yeah.
It's emergency repair. There's engineering
Well,
costs.
these are reconstruction that
Right,
you have
right.
on here. These aren't
Reconstruct-
emergency repair jobs.
No,
These
the-
are actual,
and the
tear up the
reconstruction for
road.
the reason. So
Yeah.
my point is, your example that if there's a sinkhole or the sewer collapses or whatever might happen, Joe and his department comes in and does an emergency repair. They
right.
don't do a total reconstruction because they can't, because they have to engineer it, they have to bond for it, and go through all those processes, and that takes time. So they come in and do the emergency repair. And I want to just pause there for a minute, because we're talking, right now we're talking, let's go to Clinton and Cherry and Elmwood Street, reconstruction. And staff has provided some information, so I'd like to get their input on if we did not do just that one project. Adam, duck.
Throw that out there and that'll
Why?
make your
I have a
mess.
question.
I'm reading it here, but go ahead, Counselor.
This is just actually to Pat.
Yeah.
So as part of this document, and just so you know, I've already apologized to Pat for not reading his very lengthy email in depth. Does this, for lack of better words, moratorium on debt include the pausing of the ATAD expansion in the water as well?
No, because we've already approved that. So
okay.
that sewer, wastewater treatment plant expansion that was
Get the
approved
mic.
this year is not part of this. Sorry.
People
It's
are
not-
dying to hear you.
Oh, yeah, it's not part of this. We've already approved that money, and that's been approved. Anything that's been, this is all brand new. Well, I can't say brand new, because when Bill was reading last year's stuff, it had Clinton, Cherry, and Elmwood Street in that one,
5 million.
Yeah.
too. And it's only 3.5 this year, so we're saving money.
Well, we borrowed for some of that, but I think going
Yeah, but we borrowed from project that
project by
isn't gone.
project, so
Yeah.
that people can understand what we're looking for and what that impact would be if you did go to that moratorium, because it's not all roads, there's cellular water meters, there's a lot of other things in here, so maybe
Yeah.
going to page 4, where we talk about Clinton, Cherry, and Elmwood Street reconstruction. Joe, I'm gonna call on you to talk about that project.
These are grouped together, but they're 3 separate projects. And the concept of the bond request from my department to financing and city manager was a total reconstruction of these streets. For the folks who live on Clinton Street, they've endured 18
Joe,
water
excuse me,
breaks.
pardon me. Counselors, it's tough to talk and listen at the same time, but I think this is important information, please.
Thank you, Mayor. 18 water breaks on Clinton Street we have recorded on that street. Cherry Street has somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 or 13 water breaks on that street. Elmwood Ave is the brick street, which is near and dear to a lot of folks historically with the church and the school up in that neighborhood. But when we talk about reconstruction, we're talking about the entire sanitary sewer upgrade, the entire storm sewer upgrade, and then the water main and services. And then, of course, the street pavement itself. So where do we stand on how these have been in the book over the years? Well, we're at the point now, as I previously mentioned, no projects happened between 2020 and 2022. So I'm happy to report that we have survey, we have base mapping, we have begun design to match standards for these projects to get these out the door. I don't know if you read along, you know, the impact here in Western New York, inflation has increased typically 12 to 15% annually. These are driven by nationwide trends, post-pandemic inflation, and of course rising material and labor costs that Adam spoke of.
Minimum wage.
The same would go for Paulney Street, and then whatever the next one is on the next page. But I mean, conceptually, that's the same argument that I would present to council for each of these.
I have a question on that.
Sure, Council Peeler.
Just for the scope of the breaks, when you said there was 11 water main breaks on, I think it was Clinton, was that over what span of time? Like just recorded in general, or is that like recorded since you've been here?
In the last 10 years, since
Okay.
I've been here, there's been a significant amount.
It's not like
on
those
the
happened
street.
all in one weekend. We were like, oh crap.
No, that's
Okay.
correct.
Usually you get a couple on a weekend.
But we do have aging infrastructure citywide.
Sure.
Some of our water mains date back more than 100 years, which we're proud of. I mean, the ductile iron community and the cast iron pipe company love 100-year-old cities.
Yeah.
But it's each ward, it's each of your constituents' neighborhoods, it's the streets that you live on, that we do our best to pick the ones that need the most attention, and that's the capital improvement list.
What would 1 year, 12 months of waiting cost you on that? Just the increase in prices?
Yeah, I'm gonna estimate 15% minimum.
$525,000.
that we'd have to bond more for.
Possibly.
Correct.
That's just
You're-
on the
you're
Clinton,
guessing.
Cherry, and Elmo.
That's
Yeah.
your best guess.
It's my best guess on what the current situation, the national financing changes every day, and I don't know
Interest
what the
rates.
feds are gonna do with interest rates or that kind of thing, but
I'd choose away at that 600,000 real quick. Counselor Peeler.
I have more of a demographic question, because I think our debt is important. Pat's been talking about this for 2 years straight, and I've done my best to try to understand him, because I'm a small debt person. So bigger debt is hard for me to understand. But it is true, based on just the charts that I'm looking at here, that we have lost 400 and something plus residents since 2020. So and that's just in 5 years, 4.5. So when these debt payments come to call, and some of them are extended out 10 plus years, there will be less people to share in that debt if the trend continues. So I don't know how many total tax-paying entities we had in 2020. I'm not going to put that on anyone to pull out. But the debt that we incur, we should be forecasting for the fact that it's going to hit the individual taxpayer harder who sticks around, and the taxpayer who leaves is going to get a great deal, right? Because they're gonna see some of these improvements in the last few years of their time here, or last year of their time here. Maybe it'll dramatically increase the price of their real estate, and then they'll be able to leave on that, but while only making a year of mortgage payments on a 15-year mortgage. So I just think that there is value in talking about this, because it's massively future thinking, and I've been here 6 years, and I don't think we've ever talked about how we're going to affect taxpayers in 15 years. I'm really glad we're having this conversation.
Okay, shall we move on to Pulteney Street?
I don't think there's much to add to Pulteney, except for, I think Joe put in here, there has been 6 breaks in the last 5 years on Pulteney. As you drive down Pulteney, you can see there's been lots of repairs there. One of the things too to note on all of these, this was also recommendations of your stormwater task force, was to repair and replace these systems, especially in areas that we've experienced high flooding or weather events, I guess Joe would say.
yeah, extreme weather events. Pulteney Street between 5 and 20 and Castle has been on the list for several years. We have experienced flooding and storm health hazards and structural damages to properties. We currently have pending litigation in this area in one of the residential sections. So I don't really have much more to add.
Okay. In my, thank God for my Catholic education at St. Stephen's in DeSales. If you wait 1 year, that's 1.2 million based on 15%. Okay. Moving on to cellular water meters.
I'll check with the nuns on that.
Mm-hmm.
You better
I
duck.
got good grades. Not in anything else, but I definitely got good grades in math.
I can comment on the cellular water meters. This project's a little bit different in that it's, if we were to borrow, it would be just water and sewer funds. We've already started this project, so it would be a second phase. The reason for this project and the reason why it becomes more and more important each day is we're having significant transmitter failures on the meters, which means we're estimating water sewer bills on some where we can't get reads. We're trying to switch to cellular meters from what we have now, which will allow us to get readings. We can go check the meter reading daily instead of quarterly. So if there's a leak, we can find out immediately. Similarly, the residents, homeowners will be able to have a program where they can check that as well. So if they're out of town, they can see, is there water running in my home right now, all that kind of stuff. To me, in my opinion, this would be one that we really couldn't afford to not move forward with, in a sense that we lose out on potential revenue if we do that. And we're already in the middle of it. RFPs have gone out. it's something obviously that can be discussed in the future if future city councils don't want to break up a project over different phases so that it can be kind of an all or nothing situation. So I understand this project is unique in that there are multiple years of potential bonding. One's already been done, and then we would request another one to be done next year. But I kind of wanted to just explain that one because it's a little different than something that hasn't started yet. We are in the middle of it, and to stop in the middle of it would be pretty problematic.
When did we put the last set of meters in?
When do we?
No,
When
the-
did we?
Yes.
The ones that we're taking out now.
Citywide was 2010.
So
and
they've been
the-
in 15 years.
The batteries
So-
are all dying
Right, so
rapidly.
we're not replacing the meters, we're replacing just the endpoint and transmitters, on
On
the
the
top.
existing
So we're
meters?
finding the meters are doing pretty good, it's basically the connection
Yeah.
to the software.
Because that
that's
was the
failing.
same argument they used when we put those in.
Yeah,
Was they, well, we don't have to send the guy around and read meters,
Yeah.
he can just drive
and,
down the
and,
street.
and that improved it quite a bit from 2 or 3 weeks to 2 or 3 days, and now we're looking to where we wouldn't even need to send anybody out, it would just happen automatically.
Mhm.
The meters that see what we give to the town and get from the town also part of that.
Yes, Counselor, the entire system of our meter body, transmitter, and encoders were all upgraded in 2010.
So this would just be the heads you're putting on.
Correct, the encoders and the endpoints, that's the part that submits the reading.
We get any kind of guarantee? I would have thought
Battery
meters.
life is supposed to be 20 years, we're now at year 15 and they're failing rapidly, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what, I hate to see us put all this money into a new set of meters, and in 3 years, all of a sudden, we better put something else in, because these aren't, the cellular meters are having a problem, or somebody has a cell blocker in their house and you can't get it. Which I'll tell you a story on that
The
later.
alternative is manual reading, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We can
But
go
we
back
can
to the.
replace batteries in what we
Digi-
got, right?
No.
Why can't we replace what we got?
Well, you could use that same technology, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can't
just-
switch batteries in the units, but it's a whole new unit, but, yeah, we could go back to the older technology. But our plan is to go ahead with the newest technology to help
Yeah.
resources and have less people, less manpower.
And we already have several
You're
on
already,
cellular.
you're already a year into this, is
Yeah.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
So basically what you did,
And
you
it's
took the
better for the
money and
user.
spread it out over 3 years. And you
That
did
was
it
the original
25,
plan.
26, and 27.
yeah, that was the original plan, yeah.
I have a,
If
have a
our,
vendor
if our
question.
famed, much-awaited study comes back and suggests that we should have direct connection to any customer using our water and sewer, they'd have to buy these units to keep us informed if we took over those customers as part of the,
Correct,
the
just like
best.
any other customer. Yep, they would have to, they would be responsible for having the meter, whether we purchase it and bill them or however we did it, they would be responsible for having that meter, just like we had everybody else.
could be another phase.
Yeah, and just so everyone's aware, anything that's 2 inches larger, that's what we currently do. We
Yeah.
make that the responsibility of the property owner.
Council Peeler.
So the RFPs that we have out now for the replacements of these endpoints, are they the same vendor of the initial install?
Maybe, that we're gonna receive quotes tomorrow at
So-
2 PM.
So to Pat's point on that, if these are 20-year warranted items and we're getting 15-year failures, is there a special adjusted price that we can negotiate if the same vendor is selected? Because it's
No.
their
The
units, it's their
new-
warranty.
The new ones are 20-year, the previous ones are 10-year.
Okay, so
It
we're at,
is-
so we've actually pushed the warranty.
So are we bonding these out over 30 years?
They would be, no, they're, I believe, 15.
So the water, just even though we normally do 30 on
Yeah,
water.
because it's more or less equipment.
I would
than-
say, because it's only a 20-year life on them, I wouldn't want to bond
Right,
for 30.
and it's
Right.
it's not the same vendor. I think you, Counselor Peeler, you were asking about the vendor of where the meters came from.
The endpoint,
So
right?
so that's right. So that's a different company and different company that would be installing based on what we receive back on the bids.
Because my point from a very small-minded standpoint is that what good's a warranty if the company's not the same company that we're gonna be getting the units from? I ran into this, even though I'm not having any failure with my solar panels. They have a 25-year warranty, and after 11 years, the company folded. Right, so it's like, what good's a warranty from a company that doesn't exist, or that you choose a different company? So I'm hoping that there's a strategic effort to try to, enforce the warranties from a vendor that we partner with.
Hey, Joe, much like the electric meters they're putting on the houses, can the residents decline to have this put in their house? Because, I mean, you can decline to have the new meters put on your.
Well, I'll be clear in stating that these are not smart meters, so we can get that out publicly. I know there's a concern
Well, it
with
just
the
sounds the same,
term
that's
smart
all.
meter. It sounds that way. This is a cellular transmitter, which is different than a smart meter. So, the city has chosen to standardize this equipment. So, without David Howe here, I don't think people could
Right.
decline to have us come in.
It just
but-
would be
yeah.
interesting only in that I hate to see us have two systems we gotta work with.
Yeah, I believe if it was
correct.
denied, we wouldn't be able to bill, so we would have to shut the water.
Shut the water off.
Yeah,
Wh-
Which the
wells
health
and-
department wouldn't let you do.
That's easy to meter.
Wells
Oh,
and
yeah,
septic,
yeah, we-
wells and septic.
Yeah. I
Also
think-
Gillette.
So, Adam, in the notes here, you're saying about losing revenue. You have
Yep.
a better idea what we're losing now? With our
It's,
system.
it's not a ton at the moment, but I would say,
You perked Joe's ears up
Couple-
when you said that.
yeah,
Based on our annual water quality report, our estimation, this includes fire service, this includes breaks and testing. We are calculated at like 9% loss, which is within the
Which isn't bad,
Department of Health regulations and EPA.
yeah.
but the meters each quarter, it's going from, 6 meters to now we're several hundred meters where we're not getting reads. They have to go back out manually. We don't want to get to a point where it's 1,000 meters because we don't have the manpower
To
to
do it.
actually bill people if there's that many failures. We would have to skip a quarter of billing or a month or something like that. We're
Have to
trying
send postcards.
So the revenue might not be in the actual reading, but it could be in the labor to get the reading?
It would, yes, but it would also be in the reading. Yeah, that would be,
Yeah.
that's our main loss, yeah.
Moving on to fire apparatus, and Councilor Grimaldi, I'm just assuming this is the fire truck?
Well, I think that's what the bond was for, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Well, it's not
Yep.
bonded yet.
Yeah, so this is to replace aging equipment. This is bonded with anticipation of a potential funding source of a majority of this cost. As I had mentioned, having it in your capital improvement plan does signal to them that you are committed to this as you receive this funding. I don't know, Chief, if you have anything else on delaying. I know we just talked about how long it is taking to get this equipment now.
Correct. I am reading here, add funds to the equipment reserve fund for the next 3 years and buy it in year 3 for delivery. That's pushing the apparatus out about 6 years. Currently, our replacement schedule, we are due for 3 new pieces of apparatus in the next 5 years. I just don't know if we can hold out that long. And honestly, I don't know where the money would come from to put into a savings account for that. That's up to you guys.
Yep.
I mean, if the money's gonna come from somewhere, I'm not sure how you take it and save it for 3 years instead of bonding for it. I'm not sure what the benefit is to that.
We're gonna have to put those guys out on the corner with the boots.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll put you all out there.
No, and before we move on to rink improvements, I'm looking at my notes that I did respond, and on the street reconstructions, and I think I know what the answer to this is, but I want to put it out there. Are you suggesting that we put up a vote to not do these streets this year in 2026?
That's probably what'll happen, yes.
Okay. And I think we've unheard the impact of that. So the impact of those streets not being reconstructed is 1.2 plus, I gotta go back to my notes. 1.2 million on Pulteney and 5.25 on Clinton, Cherry, and Elmwood, so it's 1.725 million. And the savings would be 600,000. The math is not making a lot of sense to me. But for me, you know, you mentioned 2002 on your street, and I get calls constantly from residents asking, when is my street gonna get done? So if there is an impact to capital improvement and there is a push out on bonding, I think it will be critical to the constituents to understand that there is going to be a push out on this. Cell meters, I thank you, staff. I mean, you answered a lot of my questions I had in here. I'm gonna just take the time to talk about it. And cell meters, I asked, are you proposing not to implement this? And I had the interest rate question again. I guess we're using 3.5. I've seen a lot less in the past, but not necessarily. And the benefit loss, which I really appreciate, which is revenue, which is important. Revenue and probably labor, which is important. Fire apparatus, I think we heard where the funds would come from. You would not bond $16 million. You would save $600,000. And in 2 years, you would have 1.2, but you wouldn't probably do anything else in the meantime. So I kind of understand where that's coming from. So now, city manager.
If I can just confuse you a little further,
Please
Mayor.
do.
You would not save 600,000 next year. You would begin with allocating 600,000 that you have anticipated saving.
Correct.
Okay.
Allocating for what?
Into a
For
savings
your
account
reserve
or
fund.
Oh,
equipment
into a reserve
amortization
fund,
account,
yes.
Yep.
whatever.
And it wouldn't necessarily be tied to any project, or it could be, but we would start the budget process with an allocation of 600,000 for reserve funding,
Yes.
and go from there.
So
If you-
the taxes would stay flat,
Right.
but yeah, you'd have money in an equipment reserve that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Right, and that wouldn't be for use next year. You would probably have to
Right.
then have the same conversation to decide if you
Right.
wanted to bond
In the
next year.
future.
Yep.
Or put another 600,000 in
And
that year by delaying another year.
If you wanna start guessing at the effect of raising prices, you could also guess at the effect of funding less debt, so that there'd be ongoing savings each year of what you spend out of the general fund and the water fund and the sewer fund, because you're carrying less debt.
I think that's what we're talking about, right?
Right, and that goes up against your estimate of what you think they estimate rising prices in a delayed project would be.
And that's the 600,000 to the 1.2 million.
Yeah, but there's another savings as you reduce your overall debt.
That's 600,000. Am I missing, I'm missing something?
No, it's 600,000 next year, but as you continue to do it and pay down, and we still have 2 million sitting here from the marina
Well,
project
I
that we
guess
haven't done anything
I'm
with,
narrowing my
You are.
vision
You're-
down
you're narrowing
to
it to the-
2026.
to the most immediate impact. But
Right.
the overall impact of reducing your indebtedness goes on forever.
I'm not gonna be responsible for that, but I'm gonna be responsible for the 2026
That's
budget, which
true.
is important, which we're talking about tonight.
Well,
Yeah.
we're talking about tonight as part of a stewardship of a city for the longer term.
And city manager and staff has talked about strategic budgeting and strategic debt loading, and we haven't grasped onto that yet. Council hasn't
We-
taken advantage of that in many ways. We're
I-
shoot-
I agree
we're
with you.
shooting at the 11th hour here, talking about not bonding.
At some point, you have to start doing less.
You want to do it tonight?
That's what the proposal is.
I
See
can't
if
wait.
the
I
votes are
can't
there.
wait for the vote. This will be interesting.
Well, at some point, when you're spending
I-
more
I-
than you can sustain over the long term, you have to put a fork in the road and take one of the avenues.
Those are opinions. We talked about credit cards the other night. You know, I don't like credit cards at all. I have no credit card debt. But I do take debt for my house. I take debt for a vehicle. I take debt for things that are important to my life. And the city takes debt for things that are important to the community. And I think that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about frivolous spending.
No, these are good people doing great work, and we're saying take a year off, we need to start turning the ship around, that's all.
And there's an impact to that, $1.2 million.
There it is. There is.
Rink improvements is next.
So just a couple quotes on the rink improvements. Days of use and past cycle, and remember the rink is counted in different calendar year, 304 days a year. The current baseline estimates that were part of the initial recreation complex plan is approximately 25,000 people annual visits. In this, we did look at post-project, if you were to go with the second design phase, where you would have about 35,000 annual visits in year one, up to 45,000 in by year three, it would kind of peak at that. Sports-related activities, including leagues, practices, public skating, and lessons, currently account for about 14,000 visits annually, and a projection to grow that up to 20,000. With the rink improvements, as mentioned, we have held off on some of bonding for rink improvements from previous capital plans because we wanted to do this feasibility study. And with that, there were 3 options within the feasibility study. The first, looking at kind of the bare minimum, what we need to do, and an estimate of around $2 million. The middle being an expansion of the rink into a community center using community partnerships to kind of foster that and continue to grow that. And then the larger piece would be a complete redesign, tear down and build back up. This is another one of those ones that was tied to potential grant funding as well as a community funding campaign. We went through the BRICS grant application, and what would be potentially bonded in your capital improvement plan is if we were funded to do that phase 2, the total build out. I know there was also questions about just doing partial and then what would happen. If we're going to go in one direction or another, I think you should make that determination, because otherwise you're going to do, which we do all the time, tear down and build up again, which probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
Councilor Petropoulos, go ahead.
Well, one of the concerns is, I don't even think we've gotten to where we're voting on one of the other plans. What I have heard is that it needs new refrigeration,
Yep.
right? So if we're gonna pay X amount for the new refrigerator, is that gonna need to be torn out if we go, yeah, that's what I thought. So in effect,
Right. So I think that's where you start with the partnerships, and I know I've been updating you guys on that. We have some letters of support we've put in there, is how do you use the center as an economic development driver and a cornerstone in downtown? And this debt plan was tying that into a vision that I shared with you, the BRICS application of that community center. Again, this is not using that debt right now. It's the potential in the future to use it, and signals that you have that commitment to go forward, which you did vote on a resolution to at least seek funding for that.
so in other words, hypothetically, if we pass, debt elimination, this isn't even really a part of the equation yet?
No, it's part of the plan. If you did debt elimination, this would be taken off the plan, and it would signal that you're not moving this project forward at this time.
We could make a motion tomorrow to say that we'll move forward when you find the grants.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But I think the other side to that is it's chicken or the egg, because grant funders will say, where is the money? Is it already designated? And if I say no, they may not be willing. And that's actually part of the grant applications is, are you willing to finance?
But do you finance ahead of time? I mean, anybody can sit down and say, I'm gonna borrow $1 million,
Right.
but are they looking to have it already done?
As part of the capital improvement plan is where you go. That's the other piece on grants, and we have some more on grants there, is you have to have, for a lot of grants, you have to have design and engineering already done and dollars allocated towards the project, because most of your grants are reimbursement. So one of those that we could look at, I'll use downtown revitalization. Everyone knows that. There was a lot of discussion about our $10 million grant. That comes at a reimbursement value. So really the improvements are much more than $10 million, because you have to put in funding with that. With the rink improvement grants and what I shared on at least the BRIC grant, and then recently another grant opportunity, we have some partners that are willing to put some funding into this as well, so it wouldn't be a whole city load, but we have to plan for it as part of a city load, and then you backfill those costs.
Councilor Beeler.
Help me understand, because I do understand, because I've spoken to some people in Rochester and Albany about grants. and how they look for the community to signal that they're more or less serious about a project. And the way that we communicate that seriousness is that we've started some phase, right? But how come we don't, maybe I'm wrong, how come we don't strategically grant based on the how come we don't strategically bond based on the minimum amount to start the discovery process in that? Because, for example, when I'm looking at 2024 with Cherry Street and with Clinton and all that, we bonded for $5 million, but that's way more than the discovery phase. So why don't we strategically bond for just that phase so that we can at least do the bare minimum to communicate that we're serious about the grant? Because it seems like we overbond in the beginning, and then we say we spent some of that money. Why do we do that?
So there's two different things here. For a grant, it's different because you have to show total capital investment of that grant magnitude. So you have to say, we have the financial capacity to make this complete if we get this grant. For a street project, which does have CHIPS or other funding on it, you have to show what your total debt is eventually, and that's why you use the band, going back to that band analogy. And you do a smaller portion of it, and then you build up to where you're really at. Is that? That's right. I was gonna say, anything you want to add into that?
That's interesting, because I always interpreted our ability to bond for things, like our capacity, is essentially our debt ceiling. That sets our ability, not our actual what we took out in loan, but essentially our what's the credit limit of the credit card.
Right. I think what the challenge is, the credit limit of the credit card may be that you can purchase a truck on your credit card. But the vendor needs to know that you're actually purchasing the truck.
And the vendor is the grant provider?
Yes, because they're going to give you money on the truck. So they may say your debt capacity is X, but your council's going to decide they don't want to do this anymore, and I don't see it in your capital improvement plan. So why would I fund this? Because it's some crazy idea that Adam came up with. It's not committed as part of something. You're welcome.
Those crazy ideas, you.
Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, I think my experience with the state officials
Thank you.
is that, they work hard to provide as many grants as possible, not just to our region, but to our city. And I can't thank Senator Nozzolio in his past and Senator Helming and Assemblyman Gallahan for their efforts to drive grants to our area. And the more we put in for grants, accept grants, and leverage those grants, like our DRI, I mean, they want us to put in for round 2. They want us to be the first one in the state to get round 2. But you have to execute. And if you don't execute, they don't want to stick their neck out and say, yeah, Geneva should deserve that grant. So if you fail on implementing grants and being successful with that, your representatives start looking at you like, I'm going to look at that other municipality because I know they can accept the funds and execute them. So the less you can execute, the less money you're going to get. Sewer maintenance program.
That was the sadness of these 2 housing projects we just drove out of town.
And the marina. Yep,
Yeah,
definitely.
I agree in part, disagree in part.
So one of the things that you do with debt when you're a small city is you do ongoing projects and ongoing maintenance, and you create funding streams. This is a common practice because you do it over long terms, and so that's what we have been doing. The $250,000 that we allocate there is usually used for regular routine lining, repairs, things like that. Joe, I don't know if you want to dive any deeper into that, but this is an ongoing maintenance program. You can do it with a variety of different programs that are large equipment and expense heavy.
No, thank you. That's, this $250,000 line item is something we've had in. Last year, we asked for it again for this year. An additional inspections, cleaning, televising. Our staff aims to do about 10%. We like to look at and get into about 10% of city sewer piping and closed drainage systems throughout each year as far as our ongoing maintenance program, and this just helps with that.
I like your last sentence, Joe. Annual bonding is not about paying for routine work. It is a responsible financial tool that allows the city to maintain, upgrade, and protect essential sewer infrastructure in a sustainable way. And I can't tell you enough. I appreciate, I wish I had time to digest all this, but my professionals here are really coming to the table with good information. Thank you very much.
So why isn't that just part of your normal budget? I mean, I would think if you're doing it every year, it would be a budget item, not a bonding item.
Because it can be spread out over longer term and it's not as much of indebtedness on it. Because 250,000, you're talking about 2.5% roughly, using
And
really
impact on
round
sewer
numbers
rates, right?
of increase or of your tax
Right,
levy.
but you're doing it this year and you're doing it next year and doing it the year after that and doing it the year after that. Well, pretty soon, you're paying the whole thing every year. You might as well be paying everything, right up front when you need to have it done. It makes no sense to me to bond normal maintenance, and this is normal maintenance. Can I ask a question? Are you gonna move the water and sewer lines out of the road finally? You're gonna put them underneath the road again, so we gotta dig up the road every time you get a
There's a
leak?
law that's called the 10-state standard that we have to have utilities spaced a certain
Oh,
dimension
distance
away
apart.
from one each
Yeah, I
other.
know
So
that.
if we could work within the right of way and keep them out of the road, we certainly can.
It would be nice.
But generally speaking, the utilities are in the road.
Yeah, just I know a lot of other cities are trying to move them out, that's all. Because they don't want to dig up the road every time they have a break. And a brand-new line can still break.
Street resurfacing, oh, Councilor Peeler.
The more I listen, the more I come up with understanding that some of the debt that we're in and the pattern of indebtedness that we have is largely based on the last conversation I heard, so that we don't tax shock residents, for lack of better words. But for me, it sounds like it's the little old lady who swallowed the fly. And what we've done is we've created a situation where, we keep rolling this over in this attempt to not tax shock the residents, and yet the debt increases, and the way our mode operandi is to just keep doing this debt, this rolling debt, even for scheduled projects that we know are coming. We could easily be telling the residents in 5 years that we're going to be doing this project. The taxes are going to go up 1.5% just for this project. And that 1.5% they're going up is not associated with anything else. We're literally creating savings and revenue for that project to be done, forecasted in the future, whether it's 3 years or 4 years out. And I'm interested in dialing back the amount of animals the little old lady eats, right? Because at the end of that limerick, which is a metaphor for good living and proper, reasonable thinking, the end is perhaps she'll die because of all the crap she's eaten. And I think we can kind of dial back those animals with the amount of indebtedness that we're in, and maybe explore a new way of funding for regular projects. I'm not saying this is going to be perfect, right? But as a person who doesn't plan to move, and I don't plan on being a statistic, and I'm thinking about 4 years out, 8 years out, 12 years out, I don't want to have to watch TV and see my council in 12 years tack on another $40 million in debt because we kept repeating the process of this debt economy. So I'm hoping there is an opportunity to kind of control some of this and maybe kind of alter the way we do some of these projects.
And I think, Councilor Peeler, to your point, that's something that staff has recommended a few times, is to come up with a debt strategy. So maybe it's, you're okay meaning this amount. What has been the past strategy is just what the indebtedness is allowed. One of the challenges that comes up is we are a small city, so large projects have considerable increases or decreases as they come up. And so how we've done it and some of the things that we've changed, and I know in Adam's time has changed as well, We don't take on debt for things we can easily purchase one time. So vehicles, equipment like that, we try to move them completely out and use cash for capital for those. There are different schools of thought on indebtedness and where we're at. And what we've used in the past is our rates, and that's where we have held. But I think that's a good council decision. So when we build a budget, we know that the direction is don't take on more than is coming off. Maybe that's the direction. Maybe it's something else about a percentage of total indebtedness. But without the lack of that, and with the focus on, you know, stormwater repairs, street resurfacing, water and sewer upgrades,
Yep.
and all of these other services, without eliminating services, this has been our strategy. So I think this conversation is really helpful, but it would have been appreciated in the front of this. And I think you have a new opportunity to do that again.
Yeah.
Maybe not you, but
I understand. No, I hope
others.
I hope we keep the ball rolling.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Street resurfacing.
Joe, want to talk about chips and how we use chips currently?
Yeah, if I understand Counselor Grimaldi's comments, continue using CHIPS money, which we do. I think Counselor Peeler indicated that CHIPS funds are there all the time. They do vary. I will caution everyone that we've already been told that the state touring routes money is most likely not going to continue, and we've been fortunate enough to spend the first round of that, and then be allocated a second round of that. Not all communities get that, and if you don't spend it, you're not going to get it. So we have projects that follow a 10-year service life model, if you will. If it can't sustain for 10 years, they will not fund it. Covers a lot of pavement improvements, serviceability, and it does cover some project survey costs if we ever had to purchase right away for a project. For instance, we're talking about the Middle Street Bridge coming up. Milling and paving is what we utilize it tremendously for as a paver-placed surface treatment. And I've listed a few items that it cannot be used for, just so everyone's aware. Operation and general maintenance activities, potholes, crack sealing, snow removal, brush and weed, vegetation control, and highway cleaning, things like that. It cannot be used for sanitary or water lines. There's a big push with NICOM to help promote another funding stream by the state that does utilities, but currently it does not. So I've brought to your attention several times before that, we want to fix the utilities before we fix the surface of the road to avoid digging up the street
Right.
again. But sometimes with the funds that we have, that's what we accomplish.
Okay, I think that is all the capital improvement suggestions, and the next one is outside of capital improvement programs. And I'm gonna move on to the comment about the business improvement district. Counselor Grimaldi, do you wanna set the stage on that one?
I just think bid should operate inside bid. Bid exists for the downtown businesses and they pay for it. We shouldn't be paying into bid. When they chartered bid, in their charter, it says the city will not pay. So unless they've changed that, we should not be contracting with them. And if we're gonna contract with them, we might as well open it up to every landscaper in town, not just bid. But bid's responsible for this downtown maintenance. That's what the local residents pay. And I'm sure if you talk to any of the business people downtown, they'll tell you they're paying a good buck to keeping downtown nice. And this particular thing that kind of set me off was them working on the lakefront, hiring the people that we said as a council, no. So we said no, they hire them, and all of a sudden now the city's paying bid for what we said no. And I think we shouldn't be paying them to do that kind of stuff. I mean, We'll give Joe an extra 80,000, that's an extra person. Or at least nice equipment.
Yeah. So the business improvement director is here too, if there are questions directly to it. Sydney joined us last time. I do want to point out that with the 41 Lakefront Hotel, the lakefront has been incorporated into the
No,
bid
only the
district.
hotel has been,
Well,
unless they've changed it since I did
Counselor,
it.
Counselor, let the city manager finish,
Okay.
please.
So it is included into that, and a part of this is working together on all of the downtown and the lakefront. You do see some impact here. DPW does still work closely with the bid on all of those resources. And then there are some examples of things that are occurring due to the bid's lakefront partnership. So they've received some grant awards that continues to build that lakefront. But they do receive assessment, and then in addition to assessment, they do receive funding from the city. Last year, you chose to take out the economic development services that we were contracting for. This year, we focused on just the beautification services, not entirely at the lakefront, but in the entire district. And we work closely with them on that. And there's some more information here about the costs should we take it on. And to your point, if we were to do that, I think the discussion would be, what does that staffing look like?
Looks like normal staffing. But a hotel is only the hotel, and that was an extra in the contract. It came in after bid was established, and it's the building. The building pays towards the bid. I mean, that's the only thing that, over on the lakefront, that was included. And that was just to get bid a little extra money, because the way they wrote that contract was not necessarily bid favorable. So,
Yeah, so the district has been amended, and they have maps on it that does go to the Welcome Center. I don't know when that amendment occurred, but I know.
did it pass through council? I mean, council would
Sydney-
have to approve it.
Yep.
Yep.
We'll have to look at all of that, but that has been something, Sydney's a month in? So she's still
I
getting,
know. Brand new,
grasping
we'll
all
get
of
you right
this.
away.
But that is part of it. The lakefront is part of that, and I know the lakefront, or not lakefront, the local development corporation and the IDA also supported the bid on some of this as well. They are not planning to do so, I don't think, in the future year, or still
It's
working
outside
through
their
that.
capacity too.
Yeah, I see $43,000 in grants already awarded. So that's good.
That's just for this year through bid for the lakefront, and some of that has been taken already and put back into, yes.
So the grants that I quoted there for Amy, that has been grant awards that have been for just this year for the bid. This is our first growing season, taking care of the landscaping there. Part of that is the big, long landscaping beds that are on Lakefront 41 property. And so because Lakefront 41 is in our assessment district, that becomes very important that we take care of that area. And those grants are lakefront specific, and some of that grant money we have actually been turning around and putting back into businesses in the district directly. That was something that I've been doing in the last month, and that's something that we have plans for. I also have plans for, I can think of off the top of my head, 4 specific grants that we're going to be able to apply for to create programming, wayfinding, and more beautification at the lakefront that would then directly benefit the downtown businesses and the other side of 5 and 20, part of our district, if we can be awarded them. But by having the opportunity to partner with the city and with DPW on that lakefront space, it gives us a lot of development opportunity that we otherwise wouldn't perhaps be afforded.
Yeah. Now, Hotel 40, or what's it called now, the old Ramada?
41.
41 Lakefront.
They pay you to do that, because they pay a special assessment on that property.
Right,
So that's what that money is supposed to go for, beautifying them.
right.
Same as downtown businesses are paying you to plant the flowers and water the flowers and all that garbage.
Right.
And do this, so, I mean,
So
so
that's-
why is the city now paying you to do the same thing they're paying you to do too?
So it's
Oh.
broken down on the bid budget page. There is the assessment funding, and then in addition to the assessment funding, they've taken on additional responsibilities to go beyond just the plantings and those other beautification services that we've helped support. And some of that has alleviated some of the work that Joe would have. I think one of the other pieces that I know, Joe, you put in here is talking about the DRI and all the additional workload that was not budgeted for the maintenance of the DRI. And rather than absorbing all of that, we've partnered with the bid through that contract. So that's why you have two contracts. Again, if we decided not to do that contract, then Joe can talk about what that impact would look like for DPW.
So do we get bids every year from different vendors to see about this money? I mean, because we're definitely
Counselor,
outside.
if we took bids for landscape work, it would have to be paid at prevailing wage rates.
I understand.
If we negotiate with the business improvement district and they hire staff at a reduced rate than union contract wages, the benefits of just that personnel cost, union rates, retirement, health insurance, and professional development, we're
Right.
saving.
But shouldn't we bid it out anyway? I mean, they may be the low
Well,
bidder.
the partnership with the business improvement district has been working smoothly. We've had
I know,
some
but that-
transition with
That isn't the
management.
right way to do it.
Who
So-
else would we contract with,
I-
would be the question.
I
And
don't
to,
know.
to back up from the procurement process, we're working with a nonprofit partner and awarding a nonprofit partner, which is a little different than the procurement, because it is a partnership. We do get an annual agreement between the two. I've shared that in the past and can share it again, which outlines what work they'll take on in addition to the work they're already doing.
I actually compliment the relationship. I've never seen downtown Lakefront look any better than it has, so it's amazing
Thank you.
than previous years. Councilor Petropoulos.
Jeez, I forgot what I was gonna ask. So, in effect, well, okay, as a downtown residence, I pay in a bid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, I totally spazzed. I'm so sorry. Yeah, it'll come to me. So what I mean, okay, I remember now. The LDC, all right, I'm liaison for that. I've seen you there once. They have their own money, but they may or may not, that may or may not be their mission. Have you discussed this with the LDC and, okay, so you haven't even?
No, not yet. Because of my only a month here, I personally have not had a chance to understand our relationship with the LDC and the IDA. But I know Kat had a very close relationship with them. She was, I think, on the board, and
She
they
was
had
on the
worked out a
board, yes.
system. So that's on my incoming to-do list, is to understand what systems of partnership had been put in place on that side of things. But I personally can't speak to that yet because I don't have a full understanding right now.
And
Okay, so I invite you to come to the next meeting.
So on that, I'm gonna just call out page 33 is the Business Improvement District budget of city funds only. So it doesn't include their grants or anything else, because this is just what we provide to them. So you'll see the assessment district, which is what Councilor Grimaldi was talking about, their share of the pilot agreements, and then maintenance support, which has grown over time as the need has expanded. And then the last line that got a little blurred here is for economic development support, which we do not fund anymore. We didn't fund in last year and wasn't recommended this year. But that's the piece. And you can see that some of these things, maintaining all the tables and chairs, the volunteer management piece is another huge piece. The lakefront and downtown is also managed by volunteers, and the bid takes on all of that. DPW does not take on the volunteer responsibilities, but that's another piece that they do.
Have we rubber stamped their budget yet? Because it has to come through council. Because otherwise they couldn't raise money by special district.
So when you approve this budget, this is when you approve their budget of all city funds.
I know, but it's more than city funds. We have to approve their special district budget because they're using our taxing authority to tax.
So that has not been past precedent that I've been aware of in several years, because we've used the budget book as that, and that's how it has been looked.
I don't know. I would
We
look.
don't do it for the
talk-
schools or
Talk to your
other-
attorney, because
Yeah,
I
we
know
can check
that
into
it's
it.
like same as a fire district in the town. The board basically has no authority over them, but they have to rubber stamp their budget so that they can,
The school and the county would have the same taxing jurisdiction, but I don't think we have.
no,
to-
only, their special district is under the city. So the city gives them permission to tax. So in order to do that,
Yeah, we
they
can
have
check with
to,
the attorney,
they would
'cause
have
we haven't
to
done it before.
they would have to pass their budget through us. And we would basically, it's basically a rubber stamp. It's not like you go in and change it. But I just know that we didn't do it last year. I haven't seen it this year yet.
I've never done it.
Yeah,
24
that
years.
shows how long they've been screwing it up. They
Well,
did it
I
back-
don't know.
They
Listen,
did it, they did
You're
it
saying
when,
it's screwing it up, but you're making
Well,
comments that I'm
I
not
was-
sure are accurate, so I
Okay.
just, let's
Yeah,
check.
we can
I
check
left
with
in
legal.
215, and 215 they
Counselor Lavin.
approved it.
So I did some work for a while back on the bid, and I looked at other bids around the state. And one of the difference in ours is that because of the close relationship with the city and the funding that goes there, they've become a kind of quasi-public organization that doesn't perform exactly like other bids from my experience. Other bids use the money that comes from the taxed authority to leverage other income. They take on tasks and develop efforts within the bid to generate more revenue that can generate more of their mission. And so a place like Ithaca, you'll see has, let's say, I can't remember the numbers, but 400,000 from or 500,000 from the taxpayer, but a budget of 1.5 million, because between grants, taking on tasks that pay, like putting up, doing setups for events, running events that generate more revenue, and being more businesslike in their operations, they can then build a budget that has more impact. And I hate to say it because Sydney's new, and say, I think that's part of what needed to be thinking of this bid is not just low-cost employment for city services, because as Ron was saying, that you don't have to pay benefits, you don't have to do all these other things. They should be thinking more about how they generate revenue with this investment that the community makes to them every time, and come up with tasks and things that generate revenue to improve things. It's a different management thing. I don't think their board has ever grasped that or taken it on, and I think it's unfair for me to sit here and say, Sydney, do this, but I think it is the answer to have more revenue from elsewhere.
I think another piece to some of those bids is they have key cornerstone partners. So I know, for example, the Corning bid, Corning puts in a large amount of that funding and says go and do. Similar, I will say that the Downtown Ithaca Alliance and the city are refocusing their relationship and partnership with writing a joint strategic plan, so they can get back to focusing on the core,
Mission.
which is the core of what we're looking for, which they call their Downtown Ambassador Program, which is similar. So I think there's lots of bids, but I do, some of this we can look at. I also acknowledge that Sydney is a
3
month
weeks
in
in.
to
Yeah.
all of this, and this was a budget handed to her with how the operations could look.
Mr. Mayor?
Council Pachopolis,
Oh, he wants to go too.
Council Pachopolis, Council Peeler.
Okay, so my question is, obviously, this is coming directly, hypothetically, from the general fund. We're not bonding, we're not borrowing. This technically won't add to the debt, but it's gonna cost the city, I guess, the total direct cost, or, almost 300 grand. So
No,
what am I looking at then?
so the 300 grand, so the 140 and the 37,000, those are all agreements. So there's a special assessment price that anyone in the downtown pays that we have to flow to them. That's how you create the bid.
Right, so,
And then the pilot share is negotiated in all the pilots, and we pay a pilot share to library, school, and other partners as well. So that's not tax levy dollars. And then bid
Correct.
maintenance support comes from your core budget.
so basically,
So
I'll let you go in a
107.
second, Bill. So what you're saying basically is the bid tax I pay, that's where it's coming from.
Yes, we don't control that per se. That is set by the assessment rate there. So it comes in and goes back out to them. We deliver it. It's like sales tax at the county level. Sales tax come in, it goes back out.
So I just want to make sure I understand this the first time. We're paying this bid tax. I've been doing it now, 12 years, 11 years? That is just what I see on my tax bill,
Yep.
right? Nobody else in the city has to fund bid but downtown, right?
Downtown non-single family homes. So if you have and there's a couple of them, Solar Villages is now part of that. If they're homes, they don't pay an assessment. Downtown businesses, that's why it's the business improvement district, pay that.
Tag them in. All right, so just making sure, we know what we're cutting, what we're not cutting, what we should just ignore, et
Right.
cetera. All right, thanks.
Counselor Peeler?
Two questions. One's a quick one. BID doesn't participate in the maintenance or facilitation of the park space on the lakefront, correct? The Frisbee golf course, the mowing, the playground, the
No.
park,
No.
right? They're not part of that, but that is the lakefront. That is part of our lakefront. So that's just something to consider when we say bid takes care of the lakefront. The most of the lakefront is actually the Frisbee golf course and the park space
Yeah, they do the weeding, the gardening
Sure.
of those beds that we
of
talked about.
the front, just really the area adjacent to and really out and around 41.
Yeah.
And in
Up-
addition to
up
the
into-
DRI
up into
green
the hotel,
infrastructure.
up
It's-
into the visitor center.
If I may clarify,
Yeah.
we, from the pedestrian tunnel at the Solar Village to the boat launch on the far side of the Welcome Center, any landscaping beds within that area are our maintenance responsibility. And we also are managing loose trash on the sidewalks and anywhere
Trash
within
handling.
the park from the lake to 5 and 20.
Thank you. And my second question is to Adam. Where did we outline the bid assessment district allocations prior to the last 2 or 3 years? Because in older budgets, bid funding was in a different spot, and I don't think we,
It fell under partner agencies, I believe, and it was just the amount that the city was
transferring
giving
over,
to the
right,
bid. It didn't have in there
pass through,
how much they were raising in taxes.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, we used to
Just
be
because
like
it,
the
just 'cause it
football.
looks to me as though bids expanded total budget costs, including what we've allocated to them,
Yeah.
has gone up a lot in the last 8 years.
Right, and and the pilot share has always been there. It just hasn't been outlined in the city budget, and same with the bid tax levy. So only the amount that the city has basically partnered with the bid to do, which was contractual each year.
Sure, and for example, in 2015, I'm looking at it, it looks like the city funded about $35,000
That sounds
to
right.
bid in 2015.
Yep.
This year, we're giving them nearly $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a 300% increase in what the city's given bid. Yet, I don't know if the city has seen a 300% growth.
No, I think to
Massive savings. on
the
personnel.
point behind that was kind of what Joe mentioned earlier, that, bid can hire several people for the cost that we can hire one. That's my assumption anyway. Joe, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but that's kind of, rather than the city maintain certain things downtown, contract with the bid to do it, they can have more people rather than us just have one extra person.
And that's my question. Why would the city be obliged to do anything when that's the bid zone?
Obliged to.
Yeah, right. If we're
Oh, I
providing
see what you mean.
if we're providing financing to cover their labor component in their district, why? That's their district. It's not like we're paying bid to go cut the grass at Washington Street Park. It's not like it's not like bids going up and pulling weeds by Wegmans.
They pay other taxes
No, they
too,
do.
not just the bid tax.
Right.
And
Well,
something
that's it.
that became quite apparent several years ago when the
Thank
city accepted the DRI project and the design that the city requested to be built on Castle Street, Exchange Street, and the 5 and 20 corridor was green infrastructure
Sure.
that never existed here before.
Right.
There was no staffing increases, there was no budgeted maintenance costs with that for DPW.
Sure.
And in a way that worked for us and with Catherine's leadership over there was to, this partnership was created to help assist with those efforts to
Why?
maintain them.
Because it's cheaper.
Why?
No, but
Because
we also didn't
weeds
hear any
grow.
objection from bids when we built all that stuff. When all that stuff came in, there wasn't a single negative or concern from bid who knew that that area was their responsibility to maintain.
Well,
But
that
now-
I'm
but
not
now-
sure of, I wasn't here.
Well, no, I was here.
I would say,
Everyone loved it.
I think the challenge is you create a business improvement district as a partnership to the businesses, and that's what the businesses are looking for. I think if you start to remove some of that, because we only contract with the bid for that piece. They do much more, which Sydney explained in the last presentation about the business relationship piece that they also do, which is part of their assessment piece.
Right.
This partnership was created to defer the costs to the DPW. If you chose to go that route, we can go that route, or if you wanted to contract with someone else. At the end of the day, it's not the bid's responsibility to maintain that infrastructure or even the downtown infrastructure.
What?
That's a component of what they do.
Landscaping at downtown is not part of their charter?
No, it's not the full charter. It's
There's probably a little bit of misconception there between not only council, but some of the businesses that pay bid of what bid is
Yep.
supposed to do, because that's still my initial question. This is no venom towards bid. This is just understanding.
yeah.
Like, how does this work? Because when you say this is the DPW, partnering with them for their responsibility, most people just hear, why would the bid area for maintenance and landscaping be DPW's job to begin with? That's a bid zone. And bid normally does handle landscaping and beautification of those areas. To call landscaping and beautification infrastructure, I think is a stretch.
Yeah.
Did not have it.
I think the challenge with it is it was all city-sponsored, city-owned infrastructure. And I do know Sydney's going on a tour of education to help people understand more what the bid does, what it does for businesses, and how we partner together. And that's one of the reasons that when we look at the recommended budget, we've included funding that goes beyond the assessment district because they've gone beyond their charter. That may be also something they explore as they go through the education with a new executive director.
Yeah.
For the last 5 years, the Geneva Community Projects I served on paid for a lot of the upkeep of the improvements that were made when we redid the waterfront down there. It was not part of the DRI, it was just improvements along the way, and it was paid for out of privately funded, picked up money, and that couldn't be sustained forever. And this is an attempt, I think, to bring some order to it. But
I don't know, I think, see, I always took it that the DPW is responsible for the basic downtown. They do the streets, they keep the curbs from being broken up, and that. Bid's job was the extras. The businesses downtown are paying for the extras. They're paying for the flowers, they're paying, and actually, most of the businesses over the years did their own flower beds. I mean, if you remember, the different businesses sponsored one of those flower beds out there. They were responsible for doing all, First Fridays, the car show, all the other little fundraising type projects that attracted people downtown. So when I was doing the bid numbers, that's what basically their charter said. So that's the way I've always taken it. They're responsible for all the extras. Joe's responsible for make sure that the street gets paved and there's no holes and, the basic, same thing he would do on any street in the city, he was responsible downtown. So you run your plows down there, the bid isn't responsible to do that, although they are responsible for the sidewalks. But the city will come in with their front loaders and get rid of that snow, because that's part of what DPW would normally do. So, I don't know, interpretation, I guess. Nobody really knows real good, and it's changed over the years.
I can tell you, my perception in the city of Geneva downtown, as opposed to many other downtowns in the area, this year, the collaboration between DPW and BID has been one of the best. And when you take a look at things like American flags and the hometown hero banners and the flowers and everything else that beautifies the downtown area, without that collaboration, you've had shoddy decorations, shoddy flowers, and your comparison to other downtowns, it doesn't even get close. So that collaboration to me has been very beneficial, and I appreciate it.
Sure.
If I can add to that, I will also say that we have been approached by other small towns in the area to come tour our downtown and see how we're doing it, to potentially copy our model for their downtowns as well. So we're looking good to outsiders too.
You're doing a great job, regardless of what we say.
Wish we could have this conversation when BIB was giving a presentation on their budget and what they needed and et cetera, because why are we doing this now, the 11th hour, we're having this conversation?
I don't
And I
consider this
apologize,
11th
I
hour.
apologize for council, because I felt like they were attacking you a little bit, so I
Right.
apologize for them.
Good with that one? Thank you very much, Sydney. Moving on to city attorney.
So I just put out here what it looks like for next year. We had provided this information last time. The current retainers is about 220,000. Year-to-date outside retainer council is about 100,000. Our current contract, which this council approved, was for 4 years. Year-to-date legal costs, 267,685. So you can see there's quite a discrepancy there. If we were to look at an in-house legal, you could have consistency across legal advice. You would have someone that knows the city operations. We did look back though, and some staff were here. Sorry, Adam. When we did this before, and you would not have outside retainers. So you would still have outside counsel for a lot of our specialty projects. When I look at the going rate of a city attorney for a city our size, first off, I couldn't find, because they're going with these contract attorneys for a variety of reasons, but you're looking at a cost of about $200 to $250, plus you're also going to want a paralegal. So it is something we could explore. I don't know that it would reduce costs long-term, because you would have to do that and continued outside retainers. We use those specialized legal matter retainers for labor negotiations, litigation, environmental law, those kinds of things. We would probably still need to use those retainers, because your specialized counsel would be more of a general counsel.
I've experienced having an in-house city attorney in the past, and we went to this model because we were limited. There was certain benefits, because an in-house city attorney was accessible to staff on a daily basis, so that was one of the benefits. But the challenge beyond that was you were limited, because even with an individual city attorney with a paralegal, and then we went to a firm who had a little more experience and latitude in different areas, to a larger firm, which this council voted on, to give us the breadth of coverage across different areas, whether it was for real estate, whether it was for legal matters, whether it was for court cases, whatever it might have been. Based on our outside legal costs, I don't see that going down. There's a lot of litigation in process, and based on some of the comments by counselors, I expect future litigation for other areas that we want to kind of drive some changes in. We live in that world, unfortunately. When you want to make changes, whether they're positive or not, you're going to drive litigation. So going back to a city attorney, in my opinion, is a step backwards, because you've received benefits by going to firms that have much more breadth in their experience and their ability to kind of deal with different legal issues. Councilor Peeler.
I like talking about legal because it's one of the few things I had to navigate and is selecting new legal and listening to all the pros and cons, and then, in my opinion, it almost watching to see how it didn't matter. We had to keep spending more money anyways. A lot of these were cost savings. A lot of these were expertise. We wanted a firm with more breadth, but we still had to outsource with no change in pace of outsourcing. I don't think we got any. I don't think we got any type of value as far as that, because we haven't decreased our amount of outsourcing. So, and that's neither here nor there. It's just that's what happened. Your opinion of it can be one way or another, but that's absolutely what happened. So, rather than getting a city attorney that's limited, which seems to be like the only one that we can get is a limited one, that's too bad. But what about finding a firm that might be a little bit more expensive but covers some of the other things that we would outsource for a slightly higher annual premium? So instead of, a firm for so much, we spend an extra $80,000 a year on a more wide approaching firm, and then we can outsource less.
So I will say the outside firm that you're utilizing now is a firm that you had with your previous legal counsel that we kept on because of the amount of work they have already done on certain litigation. And so that's why we have that specialized retainer agreement, as much as I can say in open session about
Right.
litigation. So that's where that larger piece is coming from. We knew that the two firms we were using would be additional cost year over year. The other thing that we have done, as you pointed out about the BID, we increased transparency in the budget book and put all the numbers together. Same with legal. Legal was sometime billed in different places. We've started to pull them together, but the lines aren't going to show all of that because past budget books, they may have been in other places. Now what you're seeing is those real costs. The outside costs that you're getting right now isn't for lack of our firms being able to do it. You have one specialized counsel that is working on one matter that is very expensive. However, the decision was not to switch that because
Correct.
all of the lost time and energy would have to be started again.
Thank you. So to follow that up, do you see some of this waning because we will not be with that council anymore that had that current workload?
I see it increasing for next year because that litigation matter, as we've talked about several times,
Oh, right.
is probably another year to 2 years, hopefully only 1 year, in the works.
Yep.
And we're still in the initial phases of that matter.
Yep.
I will tell you, I dread that bill every time. I
Yep.
appreciate their work, but that's why we increased the costs the way we did for next year, is to incur that in addition to our regular retainer.
Thank you. That does make sense.
Fire department.
So this is all about the EMS calls, and I'm going to let the chief take it over while I step out for a minute.
Thank you. The comment here is the fire department has taken on EMS calls that has caused the city to pay for additional training for its staff. These calls put a burden on the fire drivers and ambulance crew who are using the fire staff to cover them while they are understaffed. If we're going to continue to cover them, they should be reimbursed by the city for their costs. Again, I'm not sure where this information is stemming from. I have no data to support any of these comments.
Are you paying your guys to train for EMS calls? You are, right?
No.
Well, we paid all kinds of overtime for people to cover your guys' training for these EMS calls.
Who?
I don't know, you put it in.
We have
So-
not paid. Not.
You
again,
haven't
I'm
paid
not-
any overtime for any of your guys to go to training.
No EMS training. Correct.
They're all EMS training. That's all they talk about.
Okay, I'm not sure
I
who's
don't know.
talking, and,
Okay.
and when it says these calls put a burden on the fire drivers, if any of the fire drivers consider saving lives a burden, they can come speak to me.
Do you consider that a paid agency like an ambulance, that we're doing mutual aid to them all the time?
Okay, again,
How many EMS calls did you have last month?
I pulled data from 2024 because it's the full year data, and I've included it in the document here that's in front of you. It's about 4 or 5 pages of information, just as a general summary of those calls. In 2024 is 343 EMS calls. It accounts for about 12% of our total call volume. It's pretty low for a city of our size. Again, I'm not sure what budgetary issues are in
So
the EMS program.
our guys get called out. They go on a mutual aid call. The ambulance crew stands next to the ambulance while our guys carry those people down, put them in their ambulance, and then they bill. The
Okay.
ambulance bills.
Yep.
I think that
So, again,
if we're gonna continue to do that,
I think you
to a
might be
private
confusing
agency,
a help lifting call with an EMS call. We've always done help lifting calls for the ambulance service since the inception of the fire service.
well, there's 300 and some that we've done.
Those aren't help lifting calls. If you read the data that I submitted, it'll separate those calls in there for you. So we don't, and again, I'm not sure how we want to handle this, but if an ambulance crew is on scene and they request help lifting a patient from the second story, third story of a building or out of a basement, why we would not respond to that type of call.
Even if the ambulance is understaffed, they're not staffing their ambulances.
That's their business. That's their commercial agency. Our job is to protect our citizens.
I understand that, but I also understand that they're making giant money on our firemen, and that's not fair. That we have to keep responding, and they're billing full, same as if they carried them out. They're billing those people for that.
Okay, again, I'm not sure where the large burden is coming, and I'm not sure how we bill that agency.
We don't bill, right? We don't bill the ambulance.
Correct. We've established a partnership with them to ensure better service in our community. That billing them was never part of the agreement. The agreement is kind of laid out in this document if you want to review that, but
Chief, when your men or your men or women go for EMS training, does that cause any overtime because of their absence
Negative.
in the rest of your?
all of our career staff require refresher training, and that's all done in-house online. On duty. No overtime's generated. Yes, sir.
So what I'm seeing basically is that the EMT training is just a general thing among firefighters these days. I saw it happen in New York. And you're basically saying it doesn't cost us any extra to do that training because the state takes care of recertification, so we can put that one to bed, I think.
Yeah, again, it is separated between career and volunteer, and how they're reimbursed. But currently, under our current system, there is no career staff who's getting reimbursed for attending outside EMS training.
But they do get paid extra for having this certificate.
I'm
It's in
sorry,
the
what was that?
In the contract, it does have them being paid extra.
Correct. That's been a stipend that the EMTs
They've
and
gotten for
paramedics
a
have had
while.
for many years. Correct.
Yeah, and it's been removed for new EMTs. It's only
Okay, so they
past
took it
ones.
out?
Yes, yep, we negotiated that out of the contract.
It's a job requirement now.
Okay,
The career
that's
firefighter.
better.
Again, but the burden, I guess the claim of a burden to the fire drivers, I just have not heard that in my department at all.
Do we ever go into the town for such calls?
No, we do, unless very specifically requested, we do not provide EMS services in the town unless we are out covering that district, which is extremely rare.
Yeah, no, it's all local.
Do we bill?
We are currently not billing. That law was just established about fire-based EMS billing. They just established that bill last year, and that we're currently working on seeing what our options are in billing. It's a complex world,
Okay,
EMS billing, but we are looking into it. I think we're limited as a municipality, since we're not a fire district, we're limited on what we can bill, but we are researching that.
I don't understand Pat's criticism as that it's a burden or this is a complaint-based information. Just because I spoke to him before I read this, and I understood it as a possible opportunity that might be left on the table unclaimed, that since this is or could be interpreted as a shared service with EMS, that we could receive a stipend from them as essentially, frankly, subsidizing their service that they do bill for. So that's how I understood it.
Yep.
And through our contract with them now, if it's just an EMS call and not a fire call, And I see the emergency truck all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I let my kids know, I go, that's an ambulance and they're saving someone's life. It might not be, might not, and we're glad that they do it, right? Because they're out there, so many times a day doing it. And we got the best fire department in the world. But if there is and I trust that if there is opportunities to massage or revisit aid agreements, maybe we can.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to clarify, we do not have any type of contract with Finger Lakes Ambulance or any other ambulance service to provide coverage in the city of Geneva.
Right.
Our EMS program was in response to a poor turnout of EMS in our community.
Correct.
It was our solution to give better service when lives were at stake.
Because saving lives is not an option. We do it.
Correct. So
That's our
anytime we
duty.
can
That's right.
we can help out, we will. And we wanted to find a no-cost way to do that. And we did that with a partnership with Finger Lakes. They would provide all the back-end support, the training, the equipment, and the documentation, and we would provide the personnel to fill those. We have a lot of volunteers in our ranks who don't necessarily like the fire service, but they like EMS service. So
Right.
let's capitalize on those resources. Us back billing an EMS agency who has not really requested our help is going to be a tough thing to do. We are doing that as a service to our citizens, not as a service to the ambulance corps.
Right. Well, I hope there's more opportunities to actually expand that and fill the gaps and then treat the situation much like EMS does.
And to be honest, since the inception of this program, we've received only good compliments on the EMS response in the city of Geneva.
Yeah.
It was a big problem for a long time.
Yes, right.
And to tie into this, I think one of the things that I did share with this council, the city of Canandaigua recently did a study on fire, EMS, and dispatch services, which I think is something that, while we're not the same, is important for council to review. I sent that Friday or Saturday to everyone, that ties into some of this conversation.
So, Chief, quick question for you. I notice here that, excuse me, you mentioned that the executive director of Finger Lakes Ambulance may be willing to consider the satellite station. What would that look like, and would it affect, I mean, what would the city have to do to make that happen?
Yeah, I think that I also included that in here. They would like a contract with the town and the city of Geneva to produce that. And they're willing to have discussions. I spoke to him today, actually, their executive director. He would love to sit down with the town and the city. A large volume of their calls comes from the east end of the county. I think it's something that we can look into, but it does not come without a large price tag, I believe.
And I do know that the county is also starting to work with, they probably will start on the west side of the county having this discussion, but we'll also have this discussion because fire and EMS services is something bigger than just the city of Geneva.
We're having fun now. Okay. I think this is the last one,
That was the last one of mine.
besides the opinion at the end, that has to do with police and recreation economic development.
And I'm gonna let Taylor start off on this, or Chief. I don't know how you guys wanna split the microphone.
All right, so I'll start off on this. The comment that was raised related to identifying that there are two positions within the police department, two positions less than existed a few years ago, and, kind of that impact on overtime, as well as taking a look at the planning and economic development department and the coordinator role and how we could potentially shift funding from that to the police department. So I'll start on the planning and economic development side, and then I'll pass it to Chief to talk about that impact on the police department side. So right now, as the city is structured, the recreation and economic development department have a total of 5 FTEs for both of those departments. That includes the coordinator that oversees the daily operations of the recreation and the planning and economic development department, a recreation supervisor, a recreation maintenance mechanic, and then on the planning and economic development side, grants administrator and special events coordinator. These roles support that community engagement, the economic growth and development that we talk about all the time, recreation programming year round, et cetera. obviously under the supervision of the assistant city manager, who also has direct oversight over the code enforcement team in buildings and grounds. So taking a look at the kind of planning and economic development team structure, I think the main thing I would like to highlight is there's a lot of discussion surrounding grants in economic development and strategizing and seizing opportunities to get funding from the state and the feds, et cetera. And I just want to emphasize kind of like what that looks like on a day-to-day basis for my team and our inability to kind of be able to go beyond our current what we have if we do not get this coordinator position. So when we look at researching, identifying grant opportunities, that obviously requires, all of that research, the coordinating partners, the gathering data, the developing budgets, writing those proposals, completing all of those forms. And right now we have no grant writer on staff and just a grants, coordinator, a grants administrator. And a lot of that time, when we talk about larger infrastructure grants, we also have to think about how we need the full engineering and design plans prior to going into those applications, which again requires a lot of coordination. Once those grants are awarded, obviously we need to be able to do all of the compliance activities. We're not given the money with no restrictions. We've got lots of reporting, tracking, lots of very strict audit requirements throughout that process. And I also want to emphasize lots of grants have a cap on the amount of money that could go towards administrative costs. So you're looking at usually a 5 to 10% cap on those costs. And so the city needs to be able to still provide all of that administrative support for those grants, but it's often not a part of the funding that comes from grants. So there's all of that on the planning and economic development side that I think, requires that daily on the ground support. And then that doesn't even get into the recreation side of things, where we have a recreation complex that's having 25,000 visits per year, that we want to see succeed, that has potential developments coming down the pipeline, and that offers an opportunity to improve the quality of life of our residents. So that's just kind of, how I think about the impact of this coordinator role. If we were to remove it, we continue to operate as a, baseline fund of what we have right now. This is what we're able to do.
I would just jump in here to say we would be below baseline, because you've reduced staffing. By reducing this position, when I came to you with the departure of the 2 department heads, I shifted the focus from having 2 department heads and maintaining status quo to elevating to an assistant city manager and demoting to a supervisory level. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One is to expand the range of control and take some additional responsibilities off of DPW. But also to ensure that on-the-ground management. So if we were to shift this, some of the things that I would also offer that we would need to look at with the changes is how do we manage these operations, or do we determine it's time to stop operating some of these programs? So we've talked a lot about recreation programs, recreation services. Are there some services that we need to stop administering? Similarly, on the economic development side, should we look at no longer administering things like the farmers market or events downtown that we want to coordinate and grow, because we would be diminishing staff to these 2 departments. I bring that up also because I think one of the challenges that we often have is it's not an economic development or recreation or police officer conversation. It's a conversation of what do we want to see in the community. And so that's another piece that is tied into here, that one of these positions won't replace the other without losing some of that capacity. And so that's my concern. I did ask you guys to trust me to let me look at this new model and move us through that. That's also why we did a resolution to support this new model, because we wanted to do something differently and move beyond what status quo was. And so we saw some efficiencies that I think we're already starting to realize, where having the ACM looking at all 4 of these categories, we can look at what infrastructure needs we may have in our event spaces and how we recapitalize on that. But without the additional assistance, I don't know that we'd be able to continue to maintain those things. With that being said, I do want to go to the chief to talk about his 2 positions. But before I go there, I do also want to point out that any council member that talks to any department head, if you asked all of my department heads here if they need additional staff that are not on the green pages, but do you just want staff? They're going to all say yes, they need more. And so I point that out And it's not that Chief doesn't want these two positions, and he can talk about the importance of the two positions that were taken out before. But when you go back to that green piece of paper that the mayor mentioned at the beginning, those were not the highlighted priorities of Chief. They were something that council wants to add back in, which I think is important to acknowledge. At the same time, you will also see that DPW wants to add in a bunch of the positions that have been cut over time there. Adam says he's all set, so we'll move on beyond that. But then there's also additional positions that the fire department and other departments have put in there. And then I will also call the note about overtime. And I do want to give Chief some credit that he has been working hard on his overtime costs, and our overtime costs continually go down, not up. So in 2023, we spent just over 4,000 hours. 2024, we're at 3,175 hours. And as of September 1st, we were at 1,811 hours. So our overtime is being regulated some. We do have, as we talked through last time, a lot of vacant positions who may not be vacant on the books, but we might have someone on medical leave or we're waiting a test. So we still have more to manage. All of that to say, it's not that I'm saying don't fund those positions. I just think that we need to be very cautious of, you've asked professional staff to come up with what is their game plan for managing your goals. And when we start doing if or then, it turns into, is that really going to achieve your goals? Because it may not. Chief, do you want to talk about your positions now?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Amy. I just want to start off by saying this is my first time going through the budget process, I would say alone. Last year when I went through the budget process, I had some assistance with interim chief Mike Pasalacqua. When I got the budget request, I was given parameters of a minimum reduction of 5%. My perception with that was it would be unrealistic to ask for two positions. Knowing what I know now, this is something I am going to continue to request to council should this not move forward. And we talked a little bit about this in the last budget meeting. Amy did a really good job with the synopsis that she just gave. I'll just do a brief summary. When these two positions got cut, our jobs didn't get any easier. Our call volume is still consistently going up between 35 and 40,000 calls, and that is still a low number because there's not as much proactive enforcement that we could be doing for the city of Geneva. And what I mean by that is there are things that we are not doing, such as we're not really heavy on traffic enforcement. What happens with that? We have an increase in motor vehicle accidents. We are seeing that. The monthly reports I provided the city manager, we're having more accidents in Geneva. There's target enforcement things that we would like to be doing, community engagement initiatives we would like to be doing, but when we continue to run bare bones, we're not getting to that level. We've been very conscientious of overtime. That has been a focus of mine for a number of reasons. Obviously, budget is very important, but burnout is too. I don't want to have to mandate officers. We really are at a kind of a critical point where, although our overtime is low with this new 12-hour shift model, we are running consistently low staff, where things are getting ignored. And it's kind of hard to put into dollar signs of what this could potentially save with the police department, because there are a lot of variables to consider, like the city manager mentioned. We've got employees that go out on medical or a 207C or maybe a disciplinary issue. We have people that are in the academy. You will get in the next 2 to 3 years, we got 6 retirements coming up. And as Councilor Peeler mentioned last budget session, what makes it difficult for us is that ceiling. Our ceiling got reduced. So I lose that buffer to maintain the quality of services that we are providing. So with that, there is a need for it. I am hopeful that with the onboarding of employees that we have, we'll be able to fill some of those gaps and continue to provide a better service to the community. I think it just gets difficult too when you want to advocate for your department, but you also know that you advocating for that is taken away from another department is kind of tough for me. But that's all I got, and I've got questions if you guys got them. Thank you. Distracted me.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, sure.
Chief, thank you. When this happened and these two positions were abolished, You were not the chief.
I was a lowly patrolman.
Well, I think that's going to provide a unique perspective because my question is, was the removal of those two positions, did it have an impact past just those two positions?
100%.
And was it essentially like what, like morale essentially?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak firsthand. The morale was tough. I think I'm somebody that's very positive. Going into work, I'm a fourth generation cop, third generation Geneva cop. I'm very avid, very passionate to working here, and there were times I questioned my employment. It got scary, and it wasn't because I thought my job was on the line, but I was worried about the future, and I can tell you, we lost a couple great officers to lateral transfers out because they were next up on the low seniority list.
So we had some exodus that you believe is related to that.
Yes.
They just didn't feel supported. And they were worried about the future.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilor Lavin.
Both chiefs, I think one of the painful things here is that I think you're phenomenal departments. I've been all around the country, and you're a professional, and you do great work. But you're also in a city that's gone from 25,000 to 13,000, and have struggled to maintain the same quality and level of services that they had when the revenues were better, the percentage of things and work was different. We have a recreation place that brings in 25,000 people a year. Yet a city that offloaded its basketball program to the Boys and Girls Club has 15,000 visitors a year and gets nothing. Different sport, different buildings, choices are made, services are declined. And I think that the challenge really is to figure out, when you look at the number of people you have and the service that you're doing, great as it is, what's the long-term sustainability of the kind of work you're doing now if we don't start thinking more aggressively about tough things that are not easy. Merging, getting together with the sheriff, not saying that he can't do it, we can't do it, it can't be done, to say that we have to look at what's been going on around the rest of the country and rethinking of the models of these services, because the taxes just are not going to be able to support the kind of work you've wanted to do. You're already seeing it with a couple people leaving. But you look at the number of people and the number of taxpayers and the amount and the lack of movement towards city-town difficult things of sharing the resources. No matter what I think about how good you are, the economic realities that Cy Smith lives with his whole life are there. And I think that's the challenge. I don't think I'd vote to give you everything you want. You're great. I've used both of your services in the last year, as you know, for my family. But the reality is there that part of what we're being asked as governors and of the community and public servants is to address this issue, not just to fight over it. And so I'm sorry if anybody thinks, including Mr. Noon there, that somebody is here trying to diminish your work or your service to the community in any way. Dead wrong. I can tell you, I think I can speak for the whole council on this, that's not the case. But I'm seeing people driven from the community by the cost of their house. I'm seeing poor people having to move because they can't afford the way we do rents anymore in this town. And you saw it in the loss of the housing at HWS. That instantly became an attack on one of the greatest institution in our community, that they're not going to step up and take care of everybody. We're losing things while we're trying to maintain. So I think I appreciate your efforts, and even as we work as a group through understanding where the money goes and where it comes. And I think overall, we could think, and as I said to the bid tonight, we could think about the leverage we have in owning all the information in town and all the services in town to see if there are other ways to get more revenue out of our business model than we have in the past. But no offense, and I mean that. I'd love to see us be able to do everything you've always wanted to do. I would have loved to give you the boats for the lake, because I actually agree with you. Seneca County is a long way away from what's happening in that lake. But there are limits that I don't control, you don't control, and we have to think our way through. And the new mayor coming in January is, I don't know, you having any second thoughts, Mike? It's difficult.
I wouldn't mind just making one quick comment on that,
Yeah.
Counselor, and I appreciate your statement. I think you guys have a tougher job than I do. You had to make these really tough budgetary decisions that affect the whole community. My job is to advocate for my department,
Yeah.
try to provide the best public safety I can to Geneva. These are obviously very common sense type questions of how can we provide the same level of service and save money. I think the only thing I would caution is, one, I don't think the Sheriff's Department has the capabilities right now. I'll just use the Detective Bureau as an example, because I've heard rumors of that. I think one thing to consider too is how does that affect the quality of service for our investigations. I can tell you right now, Sheriff's Department investigations would take priority over City of Geneva investigations. We've had partnerships with them. I'll just use an example of forensic phone downloads. They were doing them for us. We would have a felony we're trying to investigate. We might wait 3-4 months for a download to come back because the Sheriff's Department's taken priority. Our response to that was we found a grant. We got one of our detectives to do it. Now we do it all in-house. So again, it's the quality and level of service we want to give to the community, and it's just my opinion as a taxpayer. I don't think public safety should be the first on the shopping block. I don't think you can put a price tag on public safety. It's just my opinion. Thank you.
Councilor Pachopoulos.
Okay, my question or my questions are twofold. First, Chief, and a reality check. I had 2 businesses leave the downtown area because there weren't enough police to patrol. My constituents downtown want to see the beat cop. I remember the beat cop. That was a beautiful thing. I think that with better police, not better policing, but with more available patrol officers, I think the confidence of the residents, tourists, and locals alike, businesses I meant, will increase, and that is very important to me. As for the coordinator position, now, I remember the safety position. It wasn't approved yet. I'm like, what are we sitting on? To me, economic development is big E, big D, not more kayak racks, none of that. What I want to know is, why is recreation tied in with economic development, not, say, with events?
So events are in economic development, and recreation, I merged them together along with facilities and building and infrastructure because they're all related. So while there's different types of economic development encompasses placemaking, it encompasses safety, it encompasses businesses. It's shifted and continues to shift, because one of the other things that I think is important for Geneva, because we don't have a lot of build-out space, it also encompasses homes, because the workers are now mind workers. They don't always go to sites. They want to live in a community that is tourism first, and I know some of you attended a session that Finger Lakes Visitor Connection did about the importance of place. And so it's tied all together, and so that's what we're using, is the economic development model that looks at all of the pieces to make it a place that people want to live in and grow. So when we talk about population decline, all of that, we're talking about population increasing. We're also talking about, going back to my youth development roots, when you are supporting recreation and development, you're building citizens that give back to the community. And I know we've had long conversations here about all of those relationships. So again, I'm going back to what started this and why we started with this community vitality coordinator doing both of these. It was in many executive sessions and a lot of brainstorming of these all need to tie together. In recreation, our rink complex, and I know we recently had a meeting on it, is an economic development driver. Families come here and use that complex. how do we use that as an anchor in that corridor? How are we getting them from that rink to the businesses downtown to spend their money, to the lakefront, to the hotels, to build it? That's one piece. That's the tourism piece. We also have industry. How does that tie in? They want places for people to live. Are our parks ready? All of those pieces tie together. And that's why when I brought Taylor on board, it was the vision that having someone oversee all of that and then someone day-to-day operations, because right now I have 2 full-time staff that are doing a wonderful job trying to help the rink stay afloat, but they need additional support, and Taylor's providing some of that, but we still need those 2 positions. And that's why I keep going back to this position. The only reason it's still vacant is because I came up with a new title. Had I just gone forward and said we're going to do a recreation director and a planning and economic development director and not thought out of the box of shifting this up and trying to think bigger, you would have both of those positions filled right now. And there wouldn't be this discussion. This discussion is because of the time it took to come up with a title that the county would approve that merged these together, because we're thinking outside of the box.
So commendable thinking outside of the box, but in my comments on the email, I believe I specified status quo won't do. We need to improve. I do not want to see a repeat of what we've had to put up with. And, you know, I mean, I saw the papers today, oh, boo-hoo, they don't want these housing projects. We need the right kind of development. I've said that to you, Taylor. I said that to you, Amy. So I just guess if we're going to keep the coordinator position, what assurance does council have that we won't get what we had, and meaning little e, little d? We want big E, big D. We want to be back on the map.
So I want to point out that I think you have had progress in the past, and I don't want to pull back from that. And I think about my own times here, and things shift and change, and there's always the rosy retrospective of my childhood was the best time, and I wish people could be a little more like that, which we know isn't always true. The coordinator and this shift was to do more, to improve ours. If we don't do this, as I mentioned, then we will start to look at basically using data to say, you know what, we can't invest in these areas, and let's find different ways to do it, which could mean other pieces. So it's not just economic development we're talking about the whole infrastructure.
Okay, little e and big D, little e, big D, little e, big E, little e D. You know, based on last year's budget and this year's budget, and I'll have more comments about this, but the way this budget season is going, I have a lack of confidence in how big any letter gets. Interestingly enough, when we talk about the 2 police officers, and I think it was important because I lived through this from 2020 to 2022. And Chief, I can't commend you, Chief Pasalacqua, all the police officers that stuck with us, because there was a national movement to defund the police. There was a major morale hit that was uncalled for. Our city police department was exceptional. And that national mantra came down in a wave onto our city police department and adversely impacted that. And that relates to budget, because we had a council back then that was looking to be conservative and also to be vindictive to our police department and remove those 2 positions. So when you talk about budget and how you're going to react to the community and how you're going to react to national input, that was a direct result of that. So this is probably one of the worst budget sessions I've ever been through in 24 years on council. And I apologize to the city manager and staff, because I can't imagine it's been pleasant for you either. You put your heart and soul into this budget. You gave us options. You worked hard as professionals that we pay well and expect to come to us with one of the best plans that you can come up with. And it's not just one person. I'm talking about a group of people that have worked hard and probably pulled their hair out a little bit trying to come up with reductions to meet council's limited thought process. It is my opinion, and Chief Parada, I'm disappointed somebody didn't come and ask for your 3 fire officers that you asked for. And City Manager, I'm disappointed that somebody didn't come and ask for 2 grant writers that you asked for. Because I'm going to tell you, those 2 other positions would add value to the city. But we're not looking at that. We're looking in tunnel vision. And we throw the public safety card out there as one of the cards that we like to use, but there's a lot more to it that goes on behind the scenes. It is my opinion that deferring costs and short-sighted thinking will adversely impact the future of residents. We talk about our kids, we talk about people wanting to live in the city of Geneva, because it will cost them. It will cost them double-digit increases in subsequent years, or seeing their city deteriorate and their services be eliminated. Not to mention disabling economic development that would create opportunities for them to stay in the community. These impacts the staff's ability to perform effectively, which would naturally cause turnover and make the city less attractive as an employer. I can't imagine you put handcuffs on some of your key employees to not be able to execute their jobs effectively and be successful in executing those jobs. I know what I would do. My resume would get sharpened real darn quick, and I'd be looking for other opportunities. You will have a lower debt balance. Oh, sure. You'll have a lower tax levy. You'll have a lower tax rate. And when you accomplish all that, you will have limited to no economic development. You will have deterioration of streets, buildings, and equipment. And that $600,000 a year you would save will cost you $2.4 million in just 12 months. So I'm going to get off my soapbox for now, and I'm dying to pass this budget. So I would like staff to take some time to evaluate where we are with the budget and come back with our tax rate, tax levy on all 3 budgets. And I'll stop talking for a minute unless there's anybody else that has anything to say.
I can say stuff.
Then
I
get to the
think-
mic, get to the mic and
Oops,
say it.
sorry, I just think you're overblowing
That's-
political
I
here.
gave you my opinion.
Okay, and
So don't,
you know my opinion. My opinion is that we have to
I've
look
heard-
down
I've
the
heard your
road.
opinion.
We can't just look at the 2026 budget. We got to look at
so
numerous.
council, what are you going to do about it?
I think that if we're going to do anything, we got to start now.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
Who's got the
I
mic?
put out a whole 3 pages
Well,
worth
do
of
it.
stuff. Well, you want me
Quit
to?
talking and do something.
We-
Let's get some action here.
I think we should.
Make a motion. You saw my motions. I put them out in front of everybody for
Okay.
everybody to see and the impact of those motions. I'm expecting you to be a professional, to be a representative of the people, and if you feel there needs to be change in this city, then you set forth and make those changes.
All right, I can do
Okay,
that. I
let's
can
do
make
it.
a motion that I think we should not have any bonding in 26. We should totally do away with all the bonding, and if something comes up, we'll get into it when we get into it. But right now, in this budget, I don't think any of the bonding should be in there. None of it. I would rather wait a little while and go through it a little better, but right now, that's my feeling. I think we need to, as number one thing, is to stop the bonding, stop borrowing money. We have a large debt load, and what's going to happen.
Council, discussion can come after you
Okay,
make
well,
the
that's
motion.
my motion.
So your motion is to remove $16.25 million.
No,
from
because
the
it's not
debt.
all bonding. There's $500,000 worth of
Be
chips in there.
specific, please, with your motion.
I did. I said, we're not going to bond. Anything that's bonded, we're not going to do.
Well, I'm looking at page 93. If everybody can turn to 93 so we all look at the same thing.
Right.
And I'm looking at bonding with the
Right.
exception of $900,000.
Okay.
So if you remove the $900,000 from $16,250, and thank God for my Catholic
15.3
education, it will be $15,350,000.
in bond.
Please make the motion as you are stating.
Okay, I make a motion that we do not do the bonding in the 26 budget.
For $15,350,000, and the formal part is, and I so move.
And I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Council Lavin. Discussion. Now you can get on your soapbox.
All right, I'm just saying that I think our amount of debt load right now is pretty high. And I think that we need to take a break. And I do not think it's going to hurt us. And I don't want to speculate that it's going to cost more money because you don't know. You're speculating that it's going to cost more money next year or the year after that. You don't know what's going to happen in a year. So I look at it as we need to start reining in some of our spending. We spend like we're a big city and we're a little city.
I
We-
just,
oh, sorry. Go
it's
ahead.
okay. I just want to get mathematical, excuse me, clarity on the number and the portion of the budget that we are essentially halting for all the future bonding for the 2026 budget, and that's on the capital improvement program page. And that doesn't include the 15.35 million for water and sewer and general bonding, or does it include the
Doesn't
15?
include it.
It does?
It's because
It
this
does.
has both water and sewer in it.
Okay, so even though we're suspending the bonding of the 15,350, there is $700,000 of that money that's coming from chips and fund balance, or is that already the subtracted figure from
We
that
subtracted the
700?
500 out.
It's already subtracted out.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that figure is that subtraction from chips and from the
Fund
fund
That's
balance.
correct.
So there still will be
The-
that.
And the fund balance, 400,000 of the fund balance is attached to some of the bonding as well. Recreation improvements and fire apparatus.
And so that fund balance will essentially now go back into the fund back
Yeah, it would just
into the
never-
fund.
it would
right.
just never
It'll
come
just
out.
never go out. So it'll basically not be a debit out of the estimated fund balance. So if this were to pass, that'll have to be adjusted for the figures that the mayor asked for what the budget's going to look like, including the fund balance figures updated.
Yeah.
So we got a calculator.
And just a question as far as the meters go, I'm not sure what we can do if we aren't. I don't know how we're going
I
to be able
imagine
to
you'll figure that
bill.
out, because we're
Well,
not being too
I
smart.
don't know how
about
we're
it.
going to
No,
bill
because we're
for
being
water and
pushed here
sewer.
to do a full thing. We can we'll bring it back in for you later. But I would have rather had waited a week and refined it better. But the mayor is pushing, so we're gonna push, we gotta do a general number.
Yeah.
The other piece too is I will notify our grant partners on this that it's no longer in the budget. So we would, in theory, may need to withdraw from those programs.
And which grants were those again?
The fire apparatus and the rink improvements.
And the fire apparatus was the CDBG
BG.
grant that last week we were told that there is already a speculation that we might not be awarded that grant to begin with?
No, we will. There's a speculation that we will be awarded that grant.
Oh, okay. Boy, did I understand that reversed.
A little bit. Yes, there's speculation, and that's why, to your point, is we were encouraged to put that in for this project in particular because they want to get that funding out as quickly as possible. A large piece of equipment uses the full grant application, and we can move that forward.
Counselor Gilat. Then Counselor Lavin.
We should have done this 6, 8, 10 weeks ago. You had this information in your head. You know you did. We talked about it in bits and pieces. You bring it out now with 2 weeks to go to pass the budget. It's too much for me to comprehend. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm not as smart as you guys, but it's too much for me to comprehend. No way I'm voting for this because I don't understand a lot of it, only because I think it's a huge impact on residents. One spot is Cherry Street, for example. When I campaigned, it was a huge issue on Cherry Street. They get nothing. Their sidewalks are shot, their streets shot, the trees are overgrown. They have a mess down that street. And that's one of most people I talked to on Cherry Street, that was a huge issue. Anyway, I think it's too much. It should have been, we had opportunities weeks ago. We could have changed any agenda we wanted to as a council. We spoke to every manager we have on staff, and a lot of the stuff didn't come up when you had them face to face. We could have had this conversation a long time ago. We could have met, worked things out through, been a lot smoother. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just saying I can't vote on it. I'm voting no today.
Counselor Lavin. Oh, sorry.
I just want to also call out, we didn't talk about the hypochlorite conversion at the water plant or the generator at the water treatment plant. When you did your call outs, you didn't mention those. Although if you do this, it'll stop those projects as well. And if that's the intention. And I don't know what that would do, but I do know those are items that Director Venuti could talk about if someone was interested. I hope.
Council Lavin.
Your Honor, I can understand your frustration. You've been at this for 25 years, and you put a lot of hours in, and I forgive your anger and frustration for that. But also, for some of us, like the last 2 years, part of the problem is this process. And I agree in part with Councilman Gillette that this is the latest hours, but I've been saying for 2 years that we need to, as a council, be more familiar with the finances, understand it more, put our priorities forward. If we had a finance committee, a public safety committee, and that we were more engaged as counselors, we would be in a better place on a night like this. I'm inclined to go along with this and return in a couple of weeks to look at whether or not, with some work from our managers, whether or not that's true, that that our current position takes us out of any of these running for grants. That's not, we can always return if it's going to be that significant an issue for something that was going to come to us. But that CBDG thing with the fire department was always a fast run based on the state saying, we got to get rid of this federal money now for fear of what the feds might do. That's not good planning either. It's sort of, racing through a grant situation. I understand your frustration. I understand Mr. Gelati's frustration, but I've been being beat up for 2 years for saying the best practices in governing is to have the people making decisions like this fully understanding and fully engaged in the finances. The sense that this is a last minute thing is because that's the way we do the budget. We throw it out the beginning of October and say you got a month to get on top of it. Nobody is that we haven't sat here. We still, and I bring it up again, and it angers people, but we lost about $1 million last year because money was sitting around uninvested, and we've never really resolved that with the with the public or with this council as to how we get on top of this thing. So I'm hoping that by January we can revisit some of the best practices in governing, get some of these things in place, and take a more rational look, the way Mr. Gillette would like to, at some of these things. Just because you're doing this tonight, if we did it tonight, doesn't mean you can't go back in 2 weeks and say, no, we're going to refine this. We're going to go back at it again. But that's the position we've been put in as a council. Kind of opaque process in the dark with very little engagement in the finances of the city throughout the year, my opinion.
Council Petropoulos.
Yes, I mean, is there any way, Councilor Grimaldi, we can make an exception for the fire truck, seeing as the grant is almost...
What I would like to do, I just as soon
In the
adjourn-
microphone, please.
I would just as soon adjourn this one and come in with a more refined resolution next Tuesday.
So you're suggesting we adjourn for tonight and revisit?
And just table the whole discussion until next week. That gives us a week to sit down and refine the resolutions. So, I mean,
I propose a motion to table this until next Tuesday, and contingent on us doing...
There's a motion on the floor
Yep.
okay.
to eliminate $15 million, $350,000 out of the budget for the bonding. If you would like to make a motion to table that, you can do that.
So moved.
Second?
Sounds like that.
Seconded by Councilor Grimaldi. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Whitfield?
Aye.
Counselor Morocco? Counselor Petropoulos?
Aye.
Counselor Gilat?
Aye.
Counselor Grimaldi?
Aye.
Counselor Peeler?
Nay.
Counselor Lavin?
Aye.
Counselor Brennan?
Aye.
Mayor Valentino?
Nay.
Motion tabled.
Anything else you want to make a motion on?
We make a motion to adjourn until next week.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
I feel, there you go, please, Counselor.
When are we gonna discuss this? We're gonna wait till next week to discuss it, or we're gonna meet again? I don't think we should discuss it next week. I think we need to meet and discuss it before next week, because we got 2 weeks left.
Maybe next week is too soon. Maybe
Well-
maybe we should wait till our November meeting, and we should spend next week.
You
What?
can't wait till the November
Oh, is it
meeting.
October 31st is when
Yes,
we have?
Right.
or else it
Sorry,
goes
I
to
was
my budget.
in the wrong
Let's
month.
wait till
You-
November.
So you have 2 more additional meetings that have been scheduled for you. That'll be 10 budget meetings that you've had with budget priorities to budget discussion.
So Pete, what are you thinking? Do you want to have next week be a work session on this, or just another meeting? Because I don't think legally we can schedule another meeting sooner than a week, as far as a public meeting, right?
You need
Isn't there got to
48
be a
hours
set?
notice.
Is it 48 hours, or is it, I thought it was 72?
It's 48 hours.
48.
You could schedule it this week, but it has to be a public meeting. I don't know if you have staff support for
We
that.
have 2 meetings left, 2 budget meetings left before the budget. No?
Yep.
Before the austerity budget comes into play.
And the austerity budget is the budget as received.
Correct.
Yes.
So let's do it next week.
So would,
You got 2 meetings.
so what are you thinking, Pete? You thinking we'd talk about it next week and vote the week after?
I was ready to vote on it tonight.
Me
Yeah.
too.
I mean, we,
Further discussion, I apologize, staff. Again, this council just can't get their act together.
That's not fair.
Yeah, it
No,
is fair.
It's not
Listen,
fair.
Counselor, you had your opportunity to talk,
Well-
and I didn't interrupt you, did I? And I totally disagree with almost everything you said, because it is repetitive, and there's no action or executable items in your comments. So let me finish. I am apologizing, because this council can't do their homework. They've had multiple opportunities to look at this budget book. They've had multiple opportunities to interact with staff. That we've been talking about this since April to try to drive initiatives. So when you say you received this in October, you didn't. You had the opportunity to talk about this way before the October meeting.
Well, for the record.
So my apologies to staff, and I hope people are available for the next 17 meetings.
Well, for the record, we only got staff's responses to Mr. Grimaldi's questions 2 hours ago.
So
Correct. And you because you only got Councilor Grimaldi's this week.
well, this was the
But we
first
got
And
one,
as
staff's
Councilor Gilat
responses
mentioned, how
today.
come you didn't get it before that?
because
We got his questions earlier this week, but we only got staff's responses tonight.
So you got the questions. For staff to fully prepare, I need it the Thursday prior to your meeting by noon.
right. I
Um,
didn't put it out till
This
Friday
came
night.
Friday night. It was a holiday on Monday.
I'm not complaining.
So staff
No.
will have that. I would like to just say that because if you have questions that you want answers to at the next meeting, it would be helpful to have it by Thursday at noon, as we've done every other week, or else we won't always be able to prepare for it. But because of the quantity of questions, staff did delay other things today to make that happen, and Sydney from the BID.
I apologize, and I'm not complaining at all about the staff. I'm simply saying that this isn't really quite the process that we would like to have, and that's why it takes 10 meetings, is because we meet once a week, we meet once a month, and for 2 years, this is how we conduct business. Of course, we don't talk to each other in between. So it's not possible to share our actual thoughts except right here in this venue, which is pretty inadequate.
Well, open meetings law.
No.
It's appropriate that we talk about it in public, including
Well, it's
argue
appropriate
about
that we
it.
talk about it in public, but it's not appropriate that we talk about it disjointed as we do.
Doesn't
So
have
this
to
is
be
part of the
The
frustration.
disjointed part is our responsibility.
Yeah, it doesn't
It
have
is.
well-
And we've never adjusted, we took us
The
4
lack of
months
doing
to have,
homework is our responsibility.
took us 4 months to have an organizational meeting after we were elected. That was- yeah.
Okay, bottom
There's
line
a motion to
is,
adjourn.
yes,
Yep.
second.
There was
It's already
discussion
been
going on.
seconded.
Anybody else want to talk? I got
Just
all night.
quickly, we have a week to do our homework now. Let's do it.
I have a
Right.
question.
Fire away. Fire away, Councilor Brennan. Fire away, Councilor
You're-
Brennan.
what do you-
Councilor Brennan, please. You wanted to say something?
Yes, sir. I would just simply like to ask if we would be able to readdress the $295,000 draw from the general fund for the vehicle purchases. I know we voted on it last week. I wondered if that could be readdressed.
It would have to be brought forward by a non-prevailing member.
Understood. Thank you.
It's non-prevailing, I thought it was the other way around. It'd be a prevailing.
Yeah, an I vote has to,
Prevailing,
yeah,
excuse me,
prevailing member.
prevailing
has to
member.
bring it up. So if you
Okay.
voted against it, then you can't, then you ought not bring it up based on rules of order.
So,
Further discussion?
It's like the anti-solid grapes rule.
Clerk, please call the roll. No, let's not even do that. Motion to adjourn is there and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?